All right, welcome in, welcome in. We are live in the flesh on a Wednesday night following the NBA Cup. We've got a fun night of basketball ahead, and we've got a little football on in the background as well too. Maybe we'll explain in a second, as of course we cover the news of the last couple of days. Our teams have been active, chat. Hey yo, just take a look at the background here. We're not representing the rundown about the sports world. It's just I guess some of our teams have. Well, I guess we don't have any Michigan stuff in the background. Hey, yo, 2026 New Year's resolution. We gotta. That's the final team we gotta add into the set, I guess, because of course one logo. We can kind of cover both sports there. You know, the college football and basketball under. You know, hey yo, the one beautiful umbrella of the Michigan logo. Hey yo. But you know, we'll get into that in a second. But yeah, Thunder versus Suns. I guess off to a hot start here. The ESPN a little bit ahead of the Amazon Prime feed. Whoa, we got the corporations battling it out. Does Amazon have like a box score? Is that a basic thing is that just like a basic question that maybe should be just an obvious yes, but I don't know. Do they have a box score? Amazon at this point, you know, they do have more individual games. You know, I know that's obvious, but hey, yo. But, you know, again, like CBS, you know, you get the market on like a Sunday for the NFL at this point, and they're just a little bit more expansive. You start getting into the college stuff where, you know, again, Amazon, it's like Thursday night football, you know, a night of NBA here and there. You know, we're not trying to talk smack and like, hey, yo, you know, Amazon's like, well, I guess now we have to take over the sports world even more. Hey, that's not what we're saying. We're just saying at this point, you know, there's still games left that they haven't quite, you know, fully taken over yet. Still, but you know, Amazon Prime not buying Warner Brothers. Do we need to call Amazon out for that in a sense as well too? Amazon, where's your money at? What's going on here? You couldn't step up and buy the Warner Brothers library? You can't just go ahead and throw that on Prime, because don't they already have? Am I crazy? Is MGM and what is MGM not already a Warner Brothers thing? We need to maybe research, you know, the industry organization charts and franchise, not necessarily franchises, but we'll just say the corporations, the studios. That's the word we're looking for. We need to, you know, research maybe the studios and where all this stuff ends up. You know, and yeah, obviously we know, you know where it ends up at the end of the day. Used to be Warner Brothers was one of them. I guess we need to research where Warner Brothers is. That Comcast? See, Chet, hey, yo, you really tune in for the, you know, the well-educated REMINGTOM pod. It is what it is. But hey, yo, again, 2026, we'll add some Michigan stuff onto the set, and we'll learn more about the big corporations that run the movie industry. I guess we'll learn less and less because, you know, Netflix is you just need to know Netflix more and more every year. They just, I guess, we'll buy more. It is what it is. We wait a couple of years until Netflix owns everything. It's like, okay, now we'll learn about the movie industry. Done. Netflix. Hey, yo, it is what it is. But like we said, fun night of NBA hoops with the NBA Cup. Assuming the Thunder don't just completely destroy the Suns here. The Suns do have that weirdness of a team that, you know, could keep up with them. I guess, you know, they've also just been a decent defensive team this year as well too. Like we're saying, a sort of feisty team, and the confidence is, I mean, you know, obviously Dylan Brooks is one of those, you know, peak irrational confidence players, but a guy like even Grayson Allen as well too, you know, can definitely try to play out of his level a little bit from time to time, can maybe step up in a game if he needs to. Again, is it going to be every game in a 7-game series? We'll see. But I guess the fun of an NBA Cup situation is the one-game scenarios. And, you know, there have been, you know, the Thunder, I guess, if they do win the NBA Cup this year, they could be the first, would they be the first team ever to win the NBA Cup and the NBA Championship? You know, there is a potential historic opportunity there for the Thunder. Forget about the record, chat. I mean, 23-1, forget about it. The problem is, at this point, you know, they didn't start off the season with the consecutive wins the way Golden State was. They're not necessarily making the t-shirts about the record, but at some point you got to. And they said that they're going for 16 in a row tonight, I think. So, you know, again, it's at some point they'll hit the, well, maybe assume they'll hit the 20-ish game mark. And I guess, so, I mean, hey, yo, the REMINGTOM math corner, you know, you only get 82 games in a season. So, you know, if you win 20 plus games in a row multiple times, again, you know, they may actually lose only like 4 or 5 games this year. This might actually be crazy what the record ends up being. Again, that Golden State team, as good as they were, there was a, maybe we have to go back and throw on a couple of regular season games near the end there, double check a box score or two, because it did seem like, again, it really took all year for them to break that 70. I mean, their record at the end of the day was only that one game difference. So I don't know if they kind of mentally, the 4-minute mile effect of it all, where they only had to get to 73-9. So they, that's just kind of what the record ended up being. But yeah, the Thunder might, and again, like we're saying, it may even out. They may only end up with like a, but I guess if it's like a 6 or 5 loss season, that is a pretty crazy jump. So, and at that point, then the loser would have to, or the next person would have to only lose 4 games in an entire season to break that record. So again, maybe it seems even more possible. Maybe you just look at it and go, oh yeah, you only have to win 20 games in a row, 4 times, and all of a sudden you're at the mark. But yeah, they're at a 10-point lead early in the first quarter. I mean, you look at the line, you look at the season, you expect it. It is what it is. But shout out. I don't know at what point we'll actually think they will break the record. I mean, you got to look at it for what it is. Again, for the percentage of the wins, they're clearly on pace. And like we've talked about with Shea's stats, you got to give him credit for being the historic type of production that it is. And, comparing it to the Warriors as well, too, the Warriors did have that season in 14-15 where they did have to, or I shouldn't say they did, but, as fans, we had to, in a way, sometimes adjust to them being, that top team. In that 14-15 season as well, too, you have the shift of LeBron going back to Cleveland. The Spurs do become, we get bounced in the first round after winning that title to the Clippers. So just us as a competitive team, I mean, we were a really good team that year and definitely were, quote unquote, a competitive team. But again, we weren't necessarily playing later into the playoffs that year, being one of the more memorable teams of the season. So you did have, that era, again, sort of moving into a different time of the league. But just the people admitting that, this is who the Warriors are. And it maybe even was a little bit more of people in the Steph versus LeBron argument. And obviously, that's still a debate that, you could have as well, too. And then people kind of maybe not, and do you want to admit even, can you even say Steph is better than LeBron at this point? Better than LeBron, But, can you even make the case at this point without getting canceled? I don't know if it's possible. But back then, there was still that, obviously, that debate and that conversation, just that whole acceptance of these guys becoming those legacy players. And I don't know if maybe, does it just become more difficult as there becomes, more legacy players as time goes on? Does it just become more difficult to become that? Or, I don't know, is there something about the Thunder team in the state? Because we've also talked about how competitive the league is as well, too. And it's, crazy talent all over the place. All these teams have guys that are fun to watch and, interesting in terms of what they could be as well, too. And, as the season is playing out, there is a, respectfully as well, too, I guess, a filtering process that happens with that. That's why we have the draft. We go back in, we get talent, we see what happens. But you see even this draft this year, and it was funny because, I was listening to a little bit of the Simmons, the last Simmons pod. You get Mahoney on a pod these days, and it's like click. But there was, up until the point we listened to, they were talking about this past draft class, and they were making the case about how many All-NBA guys could be out of this draft. And again, just kind of casually listening to it. When they said this draft, I thought they were referring to this upcoming draft with, like we've talked about, again, just the amount of talent in this draft with Dembasta. And, we've talked about it, with Dembasta, Boozer, and whoever, Peterson, is just the top 3, Wilson, and, Amit right there as well, too. So I was like, hey, is this the draft they're talking about? But it's like, no, it's the 2025 drafts. Again, just all these drafts are super talented. So could you even make the case that, like we've said before, are the Thunder being this dominant in the most, in the most talented era in the NBA? Again, maybe is it just the 4-minute mile effect of it all? The league gets more talented, the best players, dominating that, I guess, is there a paradox that you run into with it? Is there like a NBA talent paradox that you have to create at some point, where it's like, again, you just have to, you know, it is what it is at the end of the day. You just have to accept the players for dominating their sport. And I guess if we were saying that as well too, not to say that, you know, MJ didn't obviously have other historic players that he was playing against, you know, not to say that LeBron didn't have other, you know, yeah, obviously shout out LeBron's still playing, but, you know, again, as sort of the first team all NBA contenders, second team all NBA contender type of guys, like, you know, LeBron at the peak of his powers, of course, he had other people that were in the conversation as well too, but there was, if you looked at it, literally in the stats of dominance that he would have, and I guess, and Shea is at that level as well too. I guess maybe him and Jokic, maybe it is the Jokic factor. Maybe it is Jokic sort of not necessarily canceling out Shea a little bit, and Jokic is not even a guard as well too, so it's not even, you know, again, a positional pause, like another guard equal, you know, it's not like MJ and Kobe playing in the league at the same time. You know, there's probably, you know, MJ or Kobe and, you know, T-Mac or something like that. You know, it's not like there's these guys that, or, you know, Shea is the best guard in the league at this point, but it doesn't quite seem like there is, and I guess, you know, like we're saying about Simmons and stuff, you know, hey, yo, the real basketball nerds that are locked in, I'm sure, are making this push when you're, hey, pause, you know, when you're talking about looking at his stats and stuff. But with the way the team is dominating as well too, and this team is definitely, I mean, you know, hot take, this team is definitely really good, and there is a lot of, you know, as has been credited with Presti for building this team, a lot of depth and a lot of talent throughout the roster, and there's been an ability to have, you know, a rotation of those role players that can help them win. But it really is Shea that, you know, again, like obviously he won the MVP last year, but you know, maybe we're talking personally as well too. Like we said, this acceptance of him as a superstar, you know, the rival, I don't know if there is a little bit of a rivalry with Spurs OKC, but I think there is for sure. But you know, he is one of the guys where obviously you would rather, you know, switch out AJ Mitchell or Chet Holmgren than Shea. But when you really think about how many guys could be this guy on the team, because I guess the Thunder maybe get a little bit of that, you know, I don't know if like the Eagles, you know, again, maybe it's a sort of Presti Howie Roseman comp where there's overlap with those teams. But like we're saying, there is that stacked roster vibe to this team, and the more you watch this team, and not to, you know, watch this team more and more and discredit the team as they win games, but you do kind of see how important, you know, a hot take, hey, yo, you know, we're really realizing this here as he's in like, what, year 7, year 8, it's not like Shea hasn't been in the league for a while, but I guess, again, the level to which he carries the team, I think is a little underrated as well, too. I guess in a sense, you know, not to make the drastic MJ comparisons again, but I would say that, and maybe, you know, you start doing the historical comps to the Thunder team. That's what I'm saying. It is that there is just that weird mind sort of thing happening right now. And, you know, MJ, or, hey, whoa, we got to get these guys' names straight. Well, you know, it's not that crazy quite yet. But, you know, Shea does have, you know, a long ways to go, again, before he catches MJ. But in terms of a guard, obviously putting up the regular season numbers, you know, he is there for sure. And the team is having the success. And I think more importantly, the formula is perfect around him as well, too. And, you know, like we're saying with MJ, you know, there is the guys that he had at his time were perfectly talented for the 90s. You know, again, obviously Scottie Pippen was a great player, and that team was, you know, really, really good, even without MJ, the year when Scottie Pippen was their best player. But the triangle and, you know, the defensive effort and the three-point spacing that a lot of the guys brought. Again, Rodman was one of those guys that maybe you wouldn't necessarily say, you know, and especially obviously offensively, like maybe creating his own shot. Was he going to be one of the 15 best individual creators in the league at a time? But was he, you know, in any given season, one of the 15 most impactful guys? You know, he could definitely get there as well, too. But again, the roster made sense around MJ. You know, for the most part, everybody kind of knew what their role was on the team, and you know, when he needed to as well too. Again, MJ obviously relied on the guys. You know, the iconic moments of him passing to, you know, like, hey, yo, Paxton and Steve Kerr and those types of guys. But again, it's not necessarily the most stacked team in NBA history. Like you know, some of those Lakers and Celtics teams from the 80s just, you know, objectively had more and I don't know if objectively, we can just sit here and just make claims like that, but, you would kind of look at those rosters and say they were a little bit more stacked top to bottom as well, too. The Lakers, of course, being one of the, marquee teams of attracting talent and just attracting names as well, too. Do you get a guy like Bob McAdoo at a certain time in his career where it's like, okay, maybe Bob McAdoo's not scoring 30 a game, but, you still have that type of basketball talent on the roster, and, again, your ability to kind of acquire players is still what it is. But yeah, I mean, and not to rest in peace Kobe, it is what it is. But these years for Bryant when he was on the Lakers were not as successful individually. That team was not as successful as this Thunder team was. And again, this Thunder team is probably, comparing teams, the rest of the roster is probably a little bit better than the rest of the the Lakers roster in the mid 2000s as well too. There was some desperate times there. And granted, Shea's early years in OKC were not as good as Kobe's early years in LA. Just, again, obviously Shea didn't have Shaq at that point. But yeah, I mean, this is really, and again, like there's a reason MJ is the GOAT. Like, he has 6 titles. Like, LeBron it's not to, hey, shout out. LeBron's, is he at 5 yet? Is he still at 4? Do we have to double check LeBron? Like, LeBron still may be at 4, right? What, he's got 2 in Miami, 1 in Cleveland, and one in LA. So I'm not trying to sit here and say, LeBron only has 4 titles. But, that's like that's the next most amount. Again, Kobe's got 5, but not to, again, discredit his 5. But obviously, again, the Shaq years, LeBron never had Shaq he did have Shaq to start his career, just at a different point in Shaq's career, not the same sort of impact, unfortunately for LeBron at that time. But, again, that's like the next most amount, and it's still even a couple away, and, it's just obviously crazy that he was able to win that much. So it's still, a long time to be like, hey, Shea's got to go win 5 more titles after this year. Like, Shea, obviously if he's going to follow the MJ route exactly, well, is he going to win the next 2 titles, retire because of gambling debts, and then, debts, a legend? I don't know what we're, we're just talking here. We're just a guy on a couch, but, retire because of, he lost his love for the game, and then go back and win the next 3 NBA titles. And I guess, that year and a half break in there, the 2 finals stretch, is that the year? Well, I guess, does that make Wemby Hakeem in that situation? I mean, in an 84 redraft, make no mistake, as much as the Rockets fans are actually, I think, and I don't even think this is a hot take, the Rockets fans probably are passing on MJ in an 84 redraft, and it's actually, everybody in the NBA community understands it. I mean, there's going to be a couple of hot take guys that are like, you got to take MJ in the first pick because he's the best player. And you get it. But, Hakeem is definitely, a legendary guy. Hey, shout out. We're not going to disrespect Hakeem. This is one of our favorite players. And his meaningfulness, if that's a word, his meaningfulness to the Rockets franchise is crazy as well, too. Do the 2 titles equal the 6 titles when we're ranking the players? It never really, I guess, plays out that way. But again, in terms of what they mean for the fans, you could say that the 2 titles for the Houston, again, you're not trading Hakeem's career for MJ's career necessarily if you're a Rockets fan. So I don't necessarily know. Again, so there it is. It's like the careers are kind of the same at that point. Mission accomplished. But maybe that is an interesting list as well too of would the fans trade this player for, and MJ is the ultimate one, obviously, because he's, I guess do we say widely considered the GOAT in 2025? Do we say half considered the GOAT in 25 next to LeBron? I don't know what we're allowed to say, but I guess in MJ, I guess maybe the sort of media presence control would be an interesting thing to see, because he's still clearly, as powerful just in terms of people talking about him as well too. But obviously he's not playing, so there's just that the guy that is in the league actively competing is able to affect the narratives in this way sort of angle of it as well. But I guess Shea, again, you can never make these things up, and not to say that Kobe was in a sense the next MJ, not to say that he was not not the next MJ. And again, are we sitting here saying that, I guess, Shea would have to win 7 titles to beat, but we're not saying, is Shea one day going to be better than Michael Jordan? But again, this is actually, if you look at the stats and you look at the box score and you just kind of look at if you are looking at the player on paper, this is MJ. Obviously, if you're watching the player on the court, then yeah, I guess, Kobe was MJ, and that is a credit to him as well too. You'll never be able to take that away from him, and it is, allowed him to be the great player that he was as well too. And by the end of his career, he was definitely Kobe was definitely able to remix it in a way that was, iconic for him as well too. He definitely, I think, while you would think of him as an MJ disciple in a way, he still stands out as his own guy. Though, he is also probably the one great player like that does have that kind of, overlap in a way, because you start going through the names and the uniqueness of it, they do start standing out. Obviously, again, MJ, you get him as a guard, LeBron as a wing. And, you could start comparing like LeBron and Bird and Magic in terms of their versatilities. But I don't know. I think LeBron and Bird a little bit different. And again, LeBron and Magic, obviously great playmakers, could score a bucket from kind of anywhere. Maybe Magic not quite from 3. But I don't know. I think even LeBron's, and, again, I'm not trying to compare eras here as well too, but maybe just his gracefulness, like going to the basket, and his ability to drive downhill was a little bit different compared to maybe Magic was a little bit, more methodical in the way he was kind of posting up players from time to time. And again, not to say that, Magic wasn't an athletic guy driving downhill, couldn't get to the rim, pause whenever he wanted. Hey, yo, whoa. But, but in terms of on the court, he was definitely, I think LeBron, just one, obviously, hey, yo, the best athletes ever, hot take, but the way he was able to generate points offensively is just different than Magic as well too. So you start going Hakeem, different, Kareem, different than anybody that's ever played. Bill Russell, Walt, who's Walt? Chad? Well, Walt Frazier, Wilt Chamberlain, not as successful as Wilt Chamberlain, but Wilt Chamberlain, pretty good as well too. But I guess if we're comparing the numbers, obviously Shea is at this, and again, long career, but these couple of years, I guess we should say, maybe we'll be specific, we'll be correct for what's happening right now. These couple of years, numbers-wise, are as close to anything that you're going to get MJ-wise. Again, the team success and the team sort of dominance is as close that you're going to get to anything MJ-wise. I guess, and the do we use the A word now? The aura that he has, at least for the OKC fans and the OKC team, is definitely that. Maybe that is, for making the MJ comparisons, the last step of it. And not to say that Shea couldn't ever continue to hit these levels. And I guess, we don't want to disrespect the Canadian influence as well too, because there is that, he's obviously not, we're not trying to become a different pod. We're just talking about his NBA biography. Can we say he's not from here? Hey, we're not, we tread lightly, respect to Shea. We love the Canadian influence from Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I guess maybe not during the Olympics. Obviously, we'd prefer him to be on, Team USA, because that's the team we cheer for. And, we'd prefer to be cheering for Shea when he's playing basketball. It is what it is. But, and I guess, I'm not saying, is this what it was like watching MJ when he was playing? But just in terms of the unstoppability of a guard at the shot-making level, and I guess, Steph can have this as well, too. I mean, could Steph not have scored 30 points a game? But I guess if you look at even the shot attempts, it's not like Shea is taking way more shots than all these guys as well, too. Again, that's the part that does equal the MJ-ness, and MJ was, because of the three-point line, lack of the sort of, Shea does have this as well, too. I guess Shea gets to the free throw line probably a little bit more than MJ. Do we have to look at MJ's free throw numbers? I'd imagine he was, 6 to 7 a game at the peak of his powers. So it's still definitely able to get there. And again, if you give him the whistle in 2025, no, we're not. Are we saying, the 90s were way more difficult? Maybe there was a different tendency with the refs back then. Not to say that again, it was a crazier, a way crazier era. Hey, we just don't know. But, and yeah, look at the, early MJ was a free throw merchant, chat. We got him at 12 a game in 86, 87, 10 and a half in 80, 87, 88. So that would have been a little bit before, a couple seasons before they broke through and started winning the finals. In the 90s, yeah, he did move into the 7 and 8 free throw attempts a game. But him as a player as well, too, not necessarily, early 90s, but, when he returns to the league, and yeah, he is like 7 and 8, mostly actually 8 for that second stretch, those 4 seasons in Chicago there. But he is, I think, probably a little bit more, kind of post up, fadeaway type of player. If you're shooting a lot of fadeaways, you're not going to draw as many fouls, unless, of course, you're going for the counter sort of up and under shot fake type stuff. But, then it becomes specific compared to just, Shea's driving to the rim. He's going to score, but, they're also going to give him a foul as well, too. It becomes an and one, or, he just is getting the 2 points that way by the free throws. But, yeah, you see, MJ's like 20, mid 20s, almost 30, upper 20s at some points for shots per game, 27.8. And I guess 37 points a game, is a smidge above what Shea has been producing. But again, Shea could get there in minutes. If we were going per 36, I'm sure Shea has a case. MJ's nearly 40 minutes a game at this point as well, too. And again, hey, if you're tuning in right now, are we comparing Shea to, I guess we are comparing Shea to MJ. It is what it is. And, shout out Anthony Edwards as well, too. He has the charisma of MJ. I don't know if that's the right way to say it. But, again, he was one of those guys as well, too, that definitely was getting sort of the pre-anointed. And I guess maybe that's what's, I don't know if that's a pause. Hey, yo. But, that maybe that's what's fun about Shea as well, too, is, again, he has just kind of become this player. And it's not to say that he was necessarily way underrated. He was still a lottery pick. There is still a great level of talent there. Obviously, you could look at him as a throw into the trade, but was more like the main centerpiece of a pretty big trade that just ended up having a lot of picks in the trade as well, too. And then, obviously the Thunder were able to draft well with those picks and, make that trade, look even better than it obviously it was a great trade in general. But yeah, he has definitely, again, more become this than, it's like, is this? And I think MJ was a little bit like that as well, too. Did MJ have necessarily the same sort of guard in the same way? I guess Magic, had obviously, I guess MJ gets drafted in 84, so Magic is still, like year 5 at that point even. He's only in the 79 draft, so I don't, his talent is clearly there, and he's already been impacting the league, but is he going to be... And, the league is still newer-ish at that point. Well, not newer-ish, but, still sub 50 years. So maybe, again, his ability to be considered greatest point guard of all time, maybe he gets there in, like, year 8 compared to, a guy having to be, like, year 12, 13 now. But I can see, like, Oscar and Kuzi and, I don't know, Pistol Pete. Like, and now we have to remember, like, who would be the, now we have to try to remember the list of, in 1984, who would be the 10 best guards of all time? Like, hey, David Bing, like, who were the guys? But, MJ, third pick in the draft, again, not necessarily like the unanimous, this guy's going to be the GOAT, but then it ended up becoming that. So Shea does have maybe those similarities as well, too, where you're just kind of watching it happen. You're like, this is crazy. Again, MJ definitely took over the league, and I guess we go back and fire up The Last Dance, and, maybe to remember the end of the North Carolina run as well, too. Like, it was pretty early in the Bulls era that he was, becoming, obviously, very quickly just one of the more entertaining, marketable players in the league. And then, obviously, eventually, through the success in the playoffs and the dominance, was able to become, one of, the greatest player of all time. But, yeah, I mean, again, Shea has kind of now in that prime years where, yes, we haven't necessarily seen him win the title every year, but it's not like, he also has had, time as well too. But just all the seasons of what could have necessarily been in the playoffs, it's really just that one versus the Mavs. And again, that was kind of their their first run as well too. The Mavs weren't necessarily like the 80s Pistons per se, but maybe that was a little bit of the same type of learning, that needed to take place for them to get to the next level. But yeah, just in terms of, again, night to night, obviously how unstoppable a player is and how terrifying it is to watch another guard go up against another guard and just think, like, how do you stop this guy? And, that is, not to, now we're going to get into the discredited Giannis type of, I don't want to get into this type of lane of talking about player talent, but there is that just different sort of mental, I guess it's, there's the two different lanes of rooting against a player. There's the, how are we going to stop the Giannis type, where there's just nobody that can physically, sort of handle this type of player. Obviously if we're going Shaq and that mold as well too. And again, all these guys are skilled as well. It's not to say that, Giannis isn't a skilled player, but Shea doesn't necessarily have that element to his game where he's just going to, be able to bowl guys over, pause. Steph is not going to be able to just, okay, I'm going to get to the rim and get a foul on 3 guys this time. Again, he can kind of do that because of, we'll use the talent word again, and it's applicable for a guy like Steph, obviously. But, he's got that basketball talent to be able to draw those types of fouls and, has the handle to be able to keep the basketball in traffic like that. But for Shea, like, his unstoppability in his shot making, just the mental going against that. It's like, that it is, and Jokic is there as well too. Again, he just, for sometimes in his offensive stretches, is not necessarily as focused on taking shots the same way that Shea is. But yeah, for at least a guard, we should say, and maybe a guard in the mid. I don't know how specific we have to get here because I don't want to discredit Steph. Obviously, Steph from the 3-point shooting range, and then he could get, he's just such a good shot maker, obviously, that he can get there from any spot on the court. But, Shea's pace to the game is a little bit different. And maybe because he doesn't quite have the range of Steph, maybe Steph is still the best shot-making guard that we would have seen. But, just the way he closes out these games and the ability in the fourth quarter for this team to time and time again be dominant and get these wins is completely terrifying. And, Steph and the Warriors were obviously there where this team was at. I guess we were going like, why didn't Steph become MJ? In a sense, he was, I guess we're doing the whole Shea thing. Like, Steph did get there as well too. The underrated guy that captivated. And speaking of, again, the sort of captivating things as well too, Steph is right there in terms of who has, transcended and become just the most beloved players of all time. I mean, you could argue first team all beloved. It is probably like, MJ, LeBron, Steph, Kobe, and then the fifth guy would be really the debate at that point. I think those 4, honestly, and it's kind of funny that it would be like 90s and newer. I don't know if that, and sometimes there's conversation about how the sports are covered now versus then, but it's like, okay, maybe as we move into the nicer era of covering sports, the player greatness dialogue and all that stuff is maybe a little bit more, just all the players that we love are 90s plus. I don't know what's going on there, but maybe we're just underrating guys from the past as well too. But yeah, we gotta, not to say that we're not giving his, Shea his credit. I think, winning the MVP last year, first team All NBA, clearly in the mix to win MVP again if his team is just got the crazy wins record. But in terms of the legacy of what he is, just like, okay, you put Shea in a blank circumstance, and I think that's the part as well too that we're saying. It's like, move Shea onto another team, move another guy into the Thunder's team. It's, I don't want to say not close. I think the Thunder are a pretty good team, and I don't want to start calling guys out as well too and just be like, oh, this specific player on the Thunder. But not to use examples, but there are other guards in the league, and again, maybe there are other guards that have been more like second team All NBA than first team All NBA. But I don't know, even Luka. Like, you put Luka on the Thunder, it's difficult not to say that Luka, with as good of a defense as that team could provide around him as well too. I mean, that would just be the perfect counterbalance to, what his playmaking and offensive creativity could be. But is Luka going to be better? is he going to be a better shot maker than Shea at the end of these games? I mean, he can be as good as Luka can be, and Luka's one of the best that we've ever seen, you know, creating stuff and highlights plays and him versus the Clippers and all that crazy stuff. But is he going to, he can't necessarily be better than Shea, because Shea is just, again, literally as good as you can get from that type of player. And, you know, I'm throwing Luka out there because that is a guy that, you know, I feel like we can respectfully compare, and maybe we can debate, but also I think, yeah, like, you know, with the Thunder fans would be bummed out because they've obviously grown to pause, they've grown to love Shea as, hey, yo, that's crazy. But, you know, hey, yo, they've really, you know, again, obviously, you know, what he means to that fan base is crazy, and him bringing that title there. But would it, it's not the same thing as, you know, the Mavs fans getting Anthony Davis back, with all due respect to Anthony Davis, who we, you know, love and adore, and we're trying to calm people down on when the trade happened. But, you know, still, you're like, okay, Luka is not Shea, what a bummer, you know, the memories. But, you know, Luka's obviously a pretty great player as well, too. So that one, you can argue, but again, it's not like he's going to accomplish more, per se, than Shea can accomplish. I guess the team could take a step up and, you know, be even more historic offensively. And again, he's even, you could say, a better playmaker. So I guess there is stuff that he could unlock with the team. Ayo, but I think even Shea defensively as well, too, doesn't necessarily get brought up for the, you know, those types of conversations, but is obviously a really good two-way guard as well. So, you know, yeah, like, I'll even throw Edwards out there as well, too. And Edwards can definitely, and see, Edwards is another one. Like, he can definitely get there as well, too. So I feel, you know, I'm not necessarily saying, I feel good about throwing his name out there and comparing, Anthony Edwards is not as good as Shea. But if we're talking about right now, it is getting closer, though. I was looking at Anthony Edwards' season numbers, and again, he hasn't played every game this year. He hasn't been, wasn't necessarily healthy earlier on. But is he 50, 40, 90, or he might be like 50, 39, or, 50 high 30s type. But I think he was, he is, 50, 40, 83. So it'd be the free throw percentage, is keeping him out of the prestigious club. But yeah, the 50% from the field, for him to be under 20 shots a game, but for the scoring to be up where it is, again, speaking to the efficiency, shows that he is even still, again, continuing to level up as a scorer. So again, he can athletically, what he's able to achieve as a two-way player and as dynamic as he can be in fourth quarters and at the end of games, and as confident as he is, again, he can get to that level where he can be probably the main guard on a championship team. But if we're just talking about right now, again, he's not able to accomplish what Shea could accomplish on the Thunder team. Again, we'll give him the rest of the season. Obviously, the numbers are looking great. He's getting closer. He's had playoff moments where he's gotten the better of legends that you would assume that could, again, get the win in a playoff series. Would you expect Jokic to win some playoff series? I'm sure, but Anthony Edwards is going to step up and get the win. So, again, I'm not necessarily doubting his ability versus Shea. I'm just saying that if you flipped him out right now, I think the Thunder would technically be worse. Would they be worse in the long term? I guess, at the end of the day, would they win and lose less titles? Again, would the Thunder fans, in 2 weeks not be as bummed out because, Anthony Edwards is a great player? I'm sure they could get there. But as of right now, with what Shea is able to accomplish in these basketball games, it is, as good as anybody in the league. And for him to even be offensively as well, too, not to say that, for him to be offensively on tier with Jokic is crazy. Maybe say it the other way around, too. For Jokic to be on tier with Shea is crazy. But, again, to have those two guys kind of hovering around, and where Jokic does have the playmaking thing, I don't know if, him being a center makes it a little more unique. Again, like, Shea does have some historical comps as well, too, that he is fighting against from that guard position that have a similar play style. And, again, Jokic is a little more one of one-ish. But, yeah, he, I guess, if tonight, well, doesn't make up for it a little bit. And, with him being on this first team All-NBA level, it's not to say that people don't give him credit. And for him being, as, quote unquote, as cool of a player as he is as well, too, like, again, he is getting brought up more and more for sure. I'm sure the jersey sales thing is definitely, continuing to improve for him as well, too. But, yeah, just basketball on the court, terrifying, a guy you need to make buckets at, just any point in the game, but specifically at the end of games and the confidence that you have in that, like, it is right up there with anybody in NBA history. I mean, legitimately to the point now where I know we're always a little bit nerdy in talking about like how we would maybe formulate an all-time lineup, and I'm always, turning to Collinsworth over here. Where would we take Shea in the all-time draft? I don't even know. I don't even know why they got me drafted a basketball team, but I'll draft anyway. So, Shea is one of those guys where maybe if we're doing like a 30, if we're redrafting everybody, if it's a 30-teamer, the value there compared to some of these other guards is real at this point. Like wine bottle scenario, especially if we can lock in that it's this version of Shea, just in case something happens. I'm not sure. Just in case the NBA Mafia gets really crazy at this point, we've already seen them make moves. They got Chauncey Billups. Can they get, allegedly, can they get Shea allegedly next? I don't, we obviously don't hope. Well, I don't know. They already have a title, so if we're, as a Spurs fan, do we not hope that, because I guess, we have to think about it. Obviously, we don't want anybody to get hurt at the end of the day. So, if there is risk of people getting hurt, I guess they did say that in the Chauncey Billups scenario that they did, the Mafia, they would send a couple guys to collect some debts if the people weren't paying up from some of the games. I guess, they were trying to clean up in the games themselves, but maybe they weren't, maybe the players that lost in the games obviously probably weren't, maybe not at all. We've seen Molly's game a time or two. Maybe they weren't able to pay up right away. So, again, you send the guys over to collect the debts, and as much as you're like, oh, well, you got to pay a debt, it's like, well, do you have to pay a debt that was achieved via cheating means? I don't know. Doesn't seem like that's maybe fair as well too. But so there is that risk of getting hurt, I guess, if Shea ever does get on the take. Hey yo! But in terms of obviously clearing the way for the Spurs to have a chance to win a title, that would be there. And that is, at the end of the day, kind of probably subconsciously the lens that we view this all as well through too is, these are guys that Wemby's going to have to face to win the title. And I know that Wemby is, in a sense, supposed to be that guy as well too. It's like, does the league operate, does the league run through Wembanyama? Pause. Does the league operate competitively with Wembanyama at the top of the league? I don't know what the proper way to say it is there, but, he is maybe a guy that can establish himself as well too, and we've been seeing it this year with him on the court. But that's even another one, and a completely different type of player, obviously. And again, long term, Wemby versus Shea is just a crazy debate. But the fact that Shea is even in the conversation with those type of guys, where again, the uniqueness and the other types of dominance that guys like Jokic and Giannis and Wemby are able to provide. And Shea is just, such a good shot maker that he's able to keep up with any guy. Again, those are all like literally 7-foot players that can get a bucket just physically on anybody as well too. I know Wemby maybe doesn't have the back down pause element of, Jokic and Giannis at this point, but just his size and athleticism just lends an unstoppability there as well too. So yeah, hey yo, it is what it is. I guess, shout out. I didn't, are we a pro Shea pod? It is difficult because again, we're in the, well, I guess maybe we're rushing in the timeline a little bit with San Antonio. Maybe we need to see him in a playoff series first. I don't want to say we're in the, the heat of the competitive days. I don't know if that's the right way to say it as well. But, we're in, I don't want to say that we're in the prime of the competitive days as well too, because we don't want to necessarily be a Spurs competitive prime with this team. But hopefully this is the start of the competitive years for the Spurs against the Thunder. So there is just that, again, that competitive nature against Shea Gilgeous-Alexander as well too. And that is a little, well, I guess it's not a bummer to be a Spurs fan and be rooting against these teams. It's fun, but it is when people are always talking about, and again, we also have our guy that we can be entertained by as well too. Respectfully, if I could say that respectfully, hey yo. But if you got people talking about like how fun it is to watch Anthony Edwards, and again, he is fun. At the end of the day, do we not get captivated by watching great basketball play? We do, but it is still, there is like that little bit of not hate watching, but that, this is like still gonna be this is just scary to get past. This is like Shea's, I don't know how you stop it. Jokic is a little bit there as well, too. Obviously, I don't know how you stop it. Giannis is there. I don't know how you stop it. I guess maybe that is a tier of guy that just in some ways kind of exists in the league. Like, hey, there's always just going to be a great player. It is what it is. But it is sort of the last level of a guy being not just one of the best players in the league, but again, and again, to throw other names out as well, too. Like, who's not unstoppable, if that's the right way to say it. But, has Tatum mentally sort of gotten there as you're rooting against him as a fan? He does everything that you want on the basketball court. He's continued to progress the playmaking. His shot making is, maybe his consistency isn't, obviously quite Shea level. Maybe he's like upper 40s in the percentages for field goals from year to year. But again, there's nothing that Tatum can't do, and he can go toe to toe with anybody at a given time. He can elevate his play in big playoff moments. He's also taken his team to a title and proven that he can be the best player there, or one of the best players. Ayo, shout out to Jaylen Brown as well too. But he can sort of run an offense as well, if you want to say it that way. He proved that he can run a title-winning offense. But I don't know if not to say that Wemby versus Tatum would necessarily be the matchup on the court, but I don't know if it was a series, Spurs versus Tatum. Not to say that we wouldn't walk away from that and Tatum would be the best player in the series. We wouldn't be like, oh yeah, that's shocking. How did that happen? But I don't know if we would be as sort of, how do the Spurs shut this down versus, I just literally don't know how you stop a guy who can make every single basket. Or Jokic is that as well too. Like we're saying, he can make every single basket. How do you stop a guy who's just stronger than every player in the league and has this crazy wingspan and his ability to leverage his athleticism to swoop to the rim and just be able to be on balance to make these athletic finishes around the rim. And Giannis, it's like, again, those are the types of things where you just literally go, how do you stop this player? And again, hopefully Wemby gets there at some point. He was flashing a little bit of those offensive abilities. And maybe, we got to shout out the other basketball game we've got on in the background as well too. Hey, we're just letting it fly by here, but the fourth quarter is about to start for that. It is Iowa versus Iowa State. We got a little women's showdown here on the college basketball side. Nearly a top 10 matchup. I think Iowa was ranked 11, but Iowa State is 10. Both are undefeated, and Iowa State's Audi Crooks has been, seeing some of the posts on socials and just kind of lightly following the season. I guess we can expose ourselves. Have we been as locked in on that side of things? Since not even, and there's definitely going to be a nostalgia for that era. I'm not trying to say that will nothing ever be better than that era of women's. That's not what I'm saying. That was just a fun era of players to have. Obviously, you had Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, Angel Reese, Juju Watkins. All these players playing in the same season. It's like that happens in every sport. You get special seasons of intersections of talent like that. It is what it is. But again, obviously, you still have special players as well too. And if you're actually following, keeping up with that type of stuff, calling ourselves out there as well too, you would get to see what these players are producing. And Audi Crooks is one of those players. We could definitely check the numbers here and see what has been going on for the season. But I gotta say, and there is something to the name value as well too. But it's gotta be one of the names that we would know at this point. Just one of the main stars on that side of the college sports. I'm assuming Flau'jae Johnson's still around at LSU, just in terms of her eligibility, and I'm pretty sure Juju Watkins is still there as well, but I don't remember her injury timeline in terms of her returning. And I'm sure if, we probably are just forgetting some of the names now as well. But Audi Crooks would definitely, if you're just asking us, for who would be standing out this year for women's college basketball, she would definitely be the first name that we would think of. And looking at the stats, we're not wrong. 27.5 points a game, 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 73% from the field. So she's making 3 out of every 4 buckets. And I guess, she led the conference in school. Well, we're not trying to say, she led the conference in scoring last year, this year, but to take it even a step further, now she is leading the nation in scoring. So 3rd team All-American this year, but now, again, sort of probably player of the year contentions as well too. Tankathon, we need a tab for the ladies so we can see the draft prospects for her, because and I actually, before we call them out, we should just go to the website, because I think they do have a tab. Here we go. And I think actually the WNBA is 4 years, right? So you will have to wait 1 more year, I think, for Audi Crooks to be draft eligible, I guess, unless obviously there is rule changes. So you got Flau'jae Johnson right now at number 5, Lauren Betts at number 4, Olivia Miles, who would have been, I think, nearly a top 5 pick, if not top 3 last year, returning. If I'm saying the first name right, AZ Fudd from UConn, number 2, and then an international prospect, Awafam from Valencia, a center, would be the projected number 1 overall pick right now. So that would just, positionally, that'd be kind of fun. A center prospect next to Beckers and Agumbawale. Definitely something to round out the core for sure. So yeah, no, I guess, obviously, like we were saying, Audi Crooks this year. But yeah, definitely continuing to dominate and raise up those type of boards. And they are pulling away tonight as well too. The first half was close, but they seem to have gotten away in the third quarter here, and it's 61-48. So I guess you can't count out Iowa. They've gotten some transfers in and have obviously been able to replenish the talent to still be a stud team in 2025. And shout out to Caitlin Clark's parents. They're still getting screen time. They showed him at the game. The game is at Iowa State, so I think that is, Caitlin Clark's hometown, but, ended up going to the Hawkeyes. So we maybe need to look into that and see how that ended up happening. We're bad fans of the interstate sports because we weren't aware of, Caitlin Clark as a star until, she started breaking out at Iowa and getting onto the national scene that way. But, somehow she ended up on the opposite side of the state going to college and the Hawkeyes. And, it ended up being closer to us, so we're not going to be, I guess, upset about that. It is what it is. Audi Crooks defensively getting the stop, shout out. And there's been some, they've had some other post-up players in the game. There's like some pick and pops where she's popping out and then they're posting up other players. So but also kind of, too big stuff as well too. So there is a, inside-out versatility there as well. Do I say Derek Queenish? I want to say that she's definitely a better post-up player right now than Derek Queen. She honestly might be a better post-up player than anybody in the NBA. Again, Jokic's just general shot-making ability, even if it's a bad post-up, he's probably still going to hit a shot, but he's also good at posting up as well, too, so you probably got to give him credit. I don't know if Embiid can move at a speed to, well, what are we just going to say here? Sorry, Embiid, we just all of a sudden just start criticizing Embiid. Hey, Embiid, recover, get well soon, Embiid. We're pro Embiid over here. IT, take that out. It is what it is. But don't take out the fact that Audi Crooks is better at we'll just, maybe, Embiid, best version of Embiid, not as good as posting up as Audi Crooks. It is what it is. I guess we'll have to see Audi Crooks operate more from the top of the key. Peak Embiid, difficult to stop, obviously. Won an MVP doing that. But, just in terms of the footwork, dropped step type stuff, the little turnaround bank shots are pure, like perfect. It's like, wait a second, did we just, did the basketball go into a time machine when it went off the backboard there? Because, like, nobody has that type of, angle and touch pause anymore on some of this stuff. So shout out, fun player to watch for sure. Iowa, though, has closed at 10, so like we said, this could still be a feisty game. The Suns have not closed it to 10. The Thunder have opened it to 20. So they are looking like they will be cruising to an NBA Cup championship win. Who's in the East again? I guess Orlando's cooking right now. So if you were telling us in the preseason that, after the Bane trade, if you had told us that Orlando was going to be playing OKC in the finals, I don't think that would have been super crazy. Again, we're saying that now after the season, after Orlando had a slow start to the season. So is it difficult to go back? Remember where we were at preseason when the Bane trade happened. But, everybody was pretty high on the Magic at that point. And the roster looked stacked, and it was like, Paolo, he's going to take a step forward. And I know, it has been a little bit, speaking of the Bane trade, of him offensively kind of taking off here and helping power that team. Desmond Bane versus Norm Powell in the Eastern Conference NBA Cup was a matchup. I don't know if we projected that in the preseason. Jalen Williams, a 374 first half points to 48 for Phoenix. I mean, again, did we really think Phoenix was on an OKC level? But, just to go out and dominate like this in a first half is pretty crazy. The dark blue court is pretty clean. I'm not going to lie. I don't know if we've watched any Thunder NBA Cup basketball this year. Hey, maybe if that's specific, I'm not sure, but might have to go back and watch the replays. Hey, the court is a mighty nice. It is what it is. But the Spurs-Lakers will be up next. So, which team will get destroyed by OKC in the semis is the question. Can it be De'Aaron Fox and the Spurs? Steph Castle and Dylan Harper would be a nice test. And just for them to be even in a moment where it's like, hey, this game's got a little bit of stakes. It is that's kind of fun for sure. Again, sort of the one-off nature and the regular season stuff. You can see that at least the NBA Cup will have a little bit more variety in some of the teams that may be competing in it. And again, I don't know if we need to go back and look up some of the other teams, but if I remember correctly, did Milwaukee win an NBA Cup? I think Milwaukee did win an NBA Cup. Well, has it been Giannis, Steph, and LeBron? Or just Giannis and LeBron? We don't even know how many years the NBA Cup's been around at this point. It is what it is. But, you've had some not necessarily just repeats of the quarterfinals of the playoffs every year in those matchups. And at least makes it, I guess, we had like the Pelicans in one of the games against the Lakers. I know Zion had a play-in game where he was really good against the Lakers, but I think there was also a NBA Cup game. Maybe Zion wasn't in that. Maybe Brandon Ingram didn't play well in that. Hey, it is what it is. But, fortunately, Glorilla wasn't watching that one. But, we would still, maybe get some opportunity for some of these teams to find themselves in some, quote-unquote competitive moments. And, you can kind of have some good teachable coaching stuff, I guess, happen from things like that as well, too. Good opportunity for them to prove themselves against good teams with stakes. But since with stakes, are we getting hungry, chat? Shout out. But since we do have halftime, we will take a quick break, and then we will, of course, continue to focus on the. Maybe we won't. It'll be probably a 40-point game in the second half. So we probably won't do much focusing on the second half of the Thunder versus the Suns. It is what it is, but it will be on. We still got, like I said, a fun night of the Jimmy V Classic, women's college basketball as well, too, to keep an eye on. And some news, chat. Some news. Like we said, our teams have been active, so we will get into that right after this. right, we are back. Let's get into News Corner. It has been a busy couple of days, maybe 24 hours here for some of our teams. And, I mean, if we just go to ESPN homepage, I bet we will be able to dive right in. I mean, hey, yo, chat, the headlines continue. I mean, we don't even have to unpack the layers. It's all just been kind of laid out for us here right on the homepage. Sherrone Moore is no longer the Michigan head coach. When we first saw the news, it did seem like it was just, I mean, yeah, if that's the initial headline you see, then, you immediately start thinking of the football reasons. And then, of course, you see that there is, or maybe not even, of course, this is new as of today as well, too. So, initial headline is Sherrone Moore fired from being the coach at Michigan football. The next headline you see is that he had some kind of, well, not some kind of, but, there was inappropriate relationships with a staff member. So to what extent that is, I guess, we still have personally to, whoa, see what's going on there. And then you see now, as the headlines continue to flow out, that he has even been detained by the police. So I don't know, I guess, as we click into the headline here yet, if it is, tied to what we were saying would be the reason for his dismissal, or if it is, just everything is, one loss to Ohio State. Now everybody turns on you. But Sherrone Moore was detained by the police on Wednesday and was later turned over to a second police area into investigation into potential charges. The city of Saline assisted in locating and detaining, the department said in a statement, has turned over to the Pittsfield Township for investigation into potential charges. So it may not be saying, and I guess we'll see if it's connected here to what it was saying. The University of Michigan fired Moore, its head coach, earlier Wednesday following an investigation into Moore's conduct with a staffer. So, I mean, could it be two separate things? Sure, but if they're both happening at the same time, it could. And again, they're both keeping it vague, so and I'm sure for the privacy of everybody involved, it, would make sense as well, too. But again, I guess from these ESPN articles, the University of Michigan has not made it clear, again, to what extent it was going on there. Because, you go into a situation, not to call, again, other names out. Hey, this might be another sketchy one where, not just comparing players' talent, but maybe comparing allegations is a little bit different. But there have been, of course, coaches that have been dismissed from their teams in the past for relations with people in the organization. But again, it was organizational policy and, obviously, the personal lives of the people at that point, those relationships, whatever the impact of that was, more so than, again, sort of the legal implications of a relationship. But, outside of, there wasn't necessarily anything, we'll say like illegal, about the relationships that were going on there. It was just obviously, organizationally not allowed. And that's the way it was being presented when we were first seeing the headlines. But again, now there's a second layer of headlines on top of it. It's like, okay, now we'll have to, of course, continue to see what is connected here as well. Because again, it just is simply, at this point, kind of stating the two things, and obviously being pretty vague. So again, obviously you don't want to say you hope for any for anything in situations like this, outside of good things to happen. But obviously things happen in the workplace. So if there's something that goes down, again, we're not promoting it. I guess if you're the Michigan head coach, you probably got to conduct yourself with a certain level of professionalism and follow the university policies there. But again, obviously in terms of, how we look at Sherrone Moore or his ability to get a job in the future as a head coach in college football, those things are obviously still, very real. And, like we were saying, those coaches that maybe have been dismissed for those things in the past maybe are currently coaching very competitive teams. Maybe they'll win Coach of the Years at some point, and maybe they'll even win titles. They're a pretty good coach. It is what it is. But, again, now, and there is a world as well, too, where this could be, if it goes into, I don't know, some kind of money sort of situation. You know, I guess Pittsfield Township Police Department, like, would that be an NIL situation? You know, I'm not really sure what police department, or, you know, not necessarily NIL, I guess, is legal in a sense, but, you know, whatever type of, you know, money crimes could happen anymore in college football. I'm sure they're still capable of it. Again, we saw gambling stuff happen, obviously, in the NBA. We saw that one player just clearly run out of bounds when he had a wide open touchdown in not a Michigan game. But, you know, if the gambling mob was involved in college as well, too, it could make sense. You know, I guess, could the Pittsfield Township Police Department be, you know, involved if there was, like, something with recruiting where, you know, again, there was, like, and again, I don't know how the police would necessarily get involved there as well, too. Or, you know, who knows? But, you know, again, I mean, we will, you know, just obviously have to see what goes on there. Because I guess what we were, to go back to when we were saying when we first saw it as a football headline, you know, again, if we're taking it, and I don't know if it's appropriate maybe even to talk about the, you know, how you would view it in a certain timeline, you know, knowing certain headlines. So maybe, you know, it is just appropriate to move forward knowing the headlines we know. But again, if it was that type of situation where it was like, okay, you know, within the organization, you know, these things are not allowed, then yes, I would think that Sherrone Moore would have the opportunity to be a head coach again. And, you know, he was good at Michigan as well, too. Was he going to end up being a really great head coach, the next, you know, multi-championship winning college head coach, you know, carrying on, I guess, you know, Harbaugh got the one ring, but, you know, carrying on the legacy of a sort of program stalwart builder as well, too. You know, obviously those were things that he would have to continue to build a name for himself, and, you know, would have to continue to build up at other programs. But again, now at this point, obviously we're just going to have to see what the potential for him as a head coach now is in the future. And from a football standpoint as well, you know, I guess this job being available is not the most surprising thing. Maybe you give it one more year as well, too. You know, again, you don't want to say allegations aside, because if things are happening, then, you know, obviously you want victims to get, you know, justice and everything there. But, you know, again, with the way that the Michigan, I don't know how you just pivot back into the Michigan offense and say stuff like that. But just if we were looking at now a job being available for a head coach, like, that is not something that, again, I guess is super surprising. But the timeline for the availability is interesting as well, too, if, you know, they were just going to do this in general, because, you know, we've seen some major names already move on. Now, would it be names that, again, maybe you would have targeted for the Michigan job in general? Because when we were talking about Lane Kiffin before he, of course, committed to LSU, and it was seeming like that was, of course, the obvious place he was going to commit there, when the rumors of, the Lane Kiffin future announcement is going to happen. But it's not like Kiffin would be a guy that you would necessarily think about going to the University of Michigan to be the head coach. Or, you know, Matt Campbell obviously is now in the Big Ten, and the opportunity to coach Penn State is definitely a big deal. But I don't know if he necessarily would have gotten the Michigan job. You know, that would have been an interesting one as well. But I'm trying to think, you know, other big name hires. I guess Florida, again, got their vacancy with the Tulane coach. And, you know, Michigan basketball, we hired the Florida Atlantic coach. So there is, I guess, in a sense for the school, you know, a scouting ability maybe to go to a smaller school. I'm trying to, well, you know, Brady Hoke, well, maybe we promoted, here, let me see. Where did Brady Hoke? Hey, yo, shout out. You know, we got to get the next Brady Hoke in here as a head coach is what I would say. So, yeah, he was from San Diego State. And then I want to say Rich Rod was from West Virginia, but maybe he went to West Virginia afterwards, but maybe Arizona. I don't know if it was West Virginia, Michigan, Arizona, or, yeah, so West Virginia, Michigan, Arizona. Jacksonville State, following in the footsteps of Dion, and then back to West Virginia. So yeah, again, I guess they will not necessarily, it doesn't have to be, you know, again, Ole Miss to LSU. It's not like it'll be like, oh, it has to be James Franklin, the Penn State head coach, now has to go to Michigan next. But I don't know of a name that would seem like the next, hot name for a major job like this, unless, it's a promotion from within as well, too, for, kind of a later coaching cycle move to happen like this as well. But it could also be an NFL guy. And there was a second or two where when we first saw the news that Michigan didn't have a coach anymore, we were like, could we get Harbaugh again? Could Harbaugh be available? If they had lost an overtime game where Jalen Hurts throws, well, I guess he threw the 4th interception at the end, but if they had lost an overtime game where Jalen Hurts had thrown 3 interceptions and had 4 turnovers, maybe Harbaugh's back coaching Michigan. I don't know. But that doesn't seem impossible. And I know that for a Michigan fan, it's probably easy to sit here and say that, yeah, guess what? I would probably feel the most confident in having Jim Harbaugh as our head coach. But in terms of irrational guys that I think we could rationally get, Jim Harbaugh would be the number one at this point for replacements. And not to say that, again, the Chargers would be necessarily super excited to move on from Harbaugh as a head coach. It's probably been more the injury luck of the team that has held him back more so than, again, maybe the coaching. But that team hasn't necessarily been the most disciplined team in the NFL over the last couple of years. And, Herbert's obviously been great as well, too. I don't know if, player development has, are these great cases to have Jim Harbaugh go back in as the Michigan head coach. But, clearly from a college standpoint, I'm not saying he's better suited to be a college head coach, but maybe to consistently dominate college in the 2020s is a little bit more feasible for him than to consistently be, a Super Bowl contending head coach in the NFL. Again, I guess I just don't know at this point. Or, we were saying earlier in the season that Mike McDaniel should go to college, so we should be careful. Maybe Mike McDaniel is going to end up coaching Michigan football or something like that. But yeah, it does seem to be who is the guy? Because even when when Michigan got Dusty May recently for basketball, he was one of, obviously, again, sort of the hotter prospect names that was out there. And you have Michigan as a prestige job, so you can kind of talk yourself into being like, well, hey, if you, is Michigan the number one basketball school job? No, but is it way, way up there on the list? And clearly, an upgrade in the spot. And again, Dusty May is a great prospect, so you can kind of fantasize about that pairing, and then, it ends up happening as well, too. But there isn't necessarily that crazy, I guess, if we can say appropriately, that crazy fantasy about a college head coach at this point. I guess we pull up the ranking. I guess, we should say Cignetti. Could we get Cignetti from Indiana? Oh, Hoosiers fans, look out. We hate to just, flex the go blue on you like that, but could we just pull Cignetti away from Indiana? Would be pretty crazy. But, and I know, we've talked about Cignetti going to Alabama. I think, and not to say that, hot take, is at the end of the day the Alabama job a better job than the Michigan job? I don't know. But would Cignetti rather leave for Bama than Michigan? Probably. I don't know if there's also an interconference sort of, would not to say that would Indiana fans be happier if you went to Alabama instead of Michigan, but to not have to directly compete against Cignetti every year as well too would obviously maybe be a little easier to handle. The BYU guy did just re-sign as well. So we we want what we can't have, Chad. All these coaches that just signed these extensions, but the college money, we know how this works. I'm sure Michigan, could we do the Paramount bid and try to swoop in with cash and go straight to the coach and be like, here's the money. Remember how we got Bryce Underwood? We could probably get a coach as well too, kind of like that. I don't know if we're gonna get Ryan Day from the modern day Saban move when Saban goes from LSU to Bama. And do we have to check? Did he go straight from LSU to Bama? I don't want to sit here and say I don't want Ryan Day. That's just an idiotic thing to say as a college football fan, because obviously he's clearly a great coach. Nick Saban, only 2-time coach of the year. Overrated, Nick Saban? Oh, so yeah, he did have the NFL stint. So he went from LSU to Miami to Bama, if I'm recalling this correctly, because he went straight from Michigan State to LSU. And I guess, well, wait, where was he at from Toledo to Michigan State? Was that his first NFL run? Did he have 2 NFL stints in there? Here, wait a second. Let's go to the old internet library, chat. Time to hit up the Wikipedia and see what it says about Saban's coaching tenure here. He was, Oilers defensive back coach. Browns defensive coordinator. So yeah, Toledo head coach for 1 year, and then was that Browns defensive coordinator with Belichick, maybe? And then Michigan State head coach, LSU head coach, Miami Dolphins head coach, and then Bama. And then I guess, well, he's not gonna be the LSU head coach now. Or hey, yo, Chad, what are we sitting here? We talk about Saban. Maybe we get Saban. Is this a Michigan head? Oh, imagine Saban, or would the Saban, maybe the Saban move, if we're saying Ryan Day would be the modern day Saban to pivot on his team, maybe the Saban move, and again, I hate to just immediately throw out Ohio State guys as options to take over the Michigan job. Michigan fans, buckle up. I don't know if they want to hear the name, but would Urban Meyer be the guy? Oh, I don't know. I can't say that, I'm not going to sit here and lie and say that I wouldn't get a little excited if we saw that announcement. We probably would be like, we're probably going to be good. But, with the way the Jacksonville thing ended, there is, that to consider. Is he just in a different spot? Is he more focused on his time at the bar than he is at his time, talking X's and O's? I don't know. But, what formations is Urban Meyer running these days? We don't know. But, again, that's a name. That is okay, chat. We got to update the list. Our number one our Christmas wish list. Ooh, it happened right around Christmas time, chat. Hey, yo, we've got, I don't know if that's a Christmas gift or not, but our Christmas wish list for college football head coaches for Michigan. Number 1, Jim Harbaugh returns. Number 2, I can't even put Urban Meyer number 2, chat. Again, maybe Urban Meyer would be the second most excited, or the second most expectations we could have on a guy. Maybe the first, honestly. Well, maybe Saban. Okay, so Saban's our number 2. So Jim Harbaugh 1, Nick Saban 2. Hey, yo, chat. We're not trying to, again, throw the Michigan fandom right on the table. Hey, yo, we'll zip our Michigan pants back up. But Urban Meyer number 3, and then Mike McDaniel number 4. No, we gotta maybe think about the list a little bit, pause deeper than that. But here, wait, was there anybody else in the top 25? Wait, Sataki? And we keep forgetting about Signetti, but I just don't know if he's going. Ooh, you know what? Look at I don't know if, has Lincoln Riley had the big game success, but that could be a fun name to have in the mix as well, too. I guess if we were looking at like ACC, some of these teams, Brett Key has had, some interesting success at Georgia Tech. I did eyeball Texas earlier and thought about saying Sarkisian, but I don't know, is the Texas job worse than the Michigan job? I mean, we're going to sit here and say, anybody should take the Michigan job, but to try to, be a little bit unbiased about it, I mean, the Michigan job's a better job, Chad. What are we talking about? I don't know if Texas, do they have more national championships? Probably not. I mean, if you put the 40s in there, Chad, go back to 1907, the early, the turn of the century, nobody dominated a turn of the century like Michigan in the early 1900s. So, I mean, we stacked up the national titles then. But, and has Sark, been overwhelming at Texas to where we feel like, we're really eyeing Sark over there. Again, not to be disrespectful. Bob Chesney. I just am looking at James Madison because, Signetti was from James Madison. So I don't know if we try to go back into the pool and see what we got there. But he was 9-4 the first year after he took over. They won their bowl game, and then 12-1 this year. So he has continued to build the program up a little bit like that. We get this. We get this with players, obviously. And we get this with assistants as well, too, where we hire assistants, from all the same schools. So to have it play out. Oh, chat. Are we having some technical difficulties? Testing 1, 2, 3. Hello. Are we back? Okay, I think we might be back. I don't know if once we threw out Jim Harbaugh, Saban, and Urban Meyer as a wish list, 1, 2, 3, I think the YouTube was like, whoa, what's happening? It might have disconnected there for a second. Do we have to pull up rumors? Again, we don't want to overlook the fact that, there unfortunately could be some serious stuff going down on, the other side of things in terms of why the Michigan job is available as well too. But, since, we're young and dumb, we'll just focus on who could be the next head coach. Michigan next football head coach. Let's see if we at least does Polymarket have odds? Michigan's got to be a big enough school for Polymarket to have some odds. Who's next? Jeff Brom from Louisville. Oh, wait a second. The Bing is being difficult. Let's see what we've got here. Wait, did this have 7 names? 3 names emerging for the Michigan job already? Chat out. DeBoer. Whoa, DeBoer, Chad. Cignetti's going to go to Alabama, and DeBoer's going to go to Michigan. Hey, yo, the team that he lost to in the national title game, I don't know if that's how we feel about that. Marcus Freeman was another one I thought about saying, but as we talked about just in general with, coaching job tiers, is Notre Dame as a job, is that a better job? Not a better job, but, is there a little bit more prestige to that than Michigan? That's up there for a prestigious job. I mean, if we got Marcus Freeman, Marcus Freeman might go to is Harbaugh just embedded with Michigan fans at this point? It felt like the tenure ended a little tough there. And, you hate that this is the second Michigan coach in a row to leave in scandal as well, too. So maybe Harbaugh can't go back to college because, it's like extradition. He's going to get extradited back to college football, then get suspended or something. Like, I don't know if that would work. But, apparently DeBoer, according to CBS, is an option. I guess since we're throwing out top names as well, too, do we just put Dan Lanning on the list? Like, we kind of have to. But, again, would you leave Oregon? So, Lincoln Riley as another. Jed Fish, Washington. So, that's the Kalen DeBoer line as well, too. Pause. PJ Fleck. Chat. Maybe. He's a good Minnesota coach. Maybe that's fine. Brian Kelly, former LSU head coach. I do not know if the University of Michigan will be Brian Kelly's next stop. But I'm going to say probably not. I get having the name in the mix because of, his prestige and because it's a major job. And I'm sure he may get interviewed at some point. Oh, Chad, I forgot about Biff. Oh, Biff. Let Biff run the team for a year. Honestly, at this point, that's what I would want. I want Biff to run well, I guess we do have this Bryce Underwood piece that is very interesting as well, too. So that makes it a tempting job. Hey, yo. And Kalen DeBoer is an early favorite, so shout out. If the betting odds are saying it, then it's got to be true to some degree. The Detroit News, are we going to get in here without having to shout out? Not like we don't want to pay, but, hey, yo. How many newspapers can we pay for in 2025? I guess don't check the actual number because it's probably going to be 0. But Jason Eck from New Mexico, former Idaho head coach, as an option. But yeah, we just got PJ Fleck again and Jed Fish as well too. So UCLA interim, Arizona, and then Washington. Washington was pretty good this past year. They're kind of a young team. Former offensive assistant under Harbaugh from 15 to 16. Fish got a lot of experience running programs out west with former Pac-12 programs. Won 11 games with Arizona in 23 for 11th place in the AP poll. His Huskies were 8-4 this season, 5-4 in Big Ten play, and will play Boise State in the LA Bowl this month. So, did go to a little bit of a tougher conference, with the big boys now. And then, Ayo. But DeBoer, he's really, I don't know if we check the tapes on how we react to some of those DeBoer losses at Alabama. This, say step back, I don't know if that's the right term. I think the year-to-year expectations become a little bit different. Maybe the immediate, the Michigan pressure cooker is definitely there, and you have that Ohio State game they have to worry about every year. So I don't know. I think if Marcus Freeman is an option, it's got to be Marcus Freeman. Hey, yo, that'd be a crazy move. Otherwise, yeah, I think maybe the NFL guys or the prestigious guys. Is Mike Gundy available, chat? Whoa! he's a man. We can get Mike Gundy. Well, I guess, hey, yo, we're going to say we have to hire a man. But, just to quote Mike Gundy, as he says it about himself, he is also, I guess, probably not an option for Michigan head coach. But, yeah, hey, yo, I guess we'll continue to see what the news has to say about what ends up happening with the former coach at Michigan. But clearly now, the biggest job of the offseason that was available, formerly LSU, and shout out again, Lane Kiffin was definitely going to be probably an SEC guy. But Grayson Allen, is he getting into it with one of the OKC guys? It is a 30-point game right now. 40-point game? Oh, a 40-point game. Hey, yo. Jalen Williams hyping the crowd up. Somebody's getting ejected. I don't know if it's Jalen Williams or Grayson Allen. It may probably be both. Is it Dort? Do we have to rewind the feed? We might have to, honestly. And I think, are we a little bit paused behind as well? No, I think we're live. I think it's good we're live. Hey, yo. But Jalen Williams is just on the bench right now. He hasn't walked off the court. I don't know if they go to the reviews. Wait. Oh, well, we missed the announcement. We talked over it. But they were going to review something here. So we'll see who ends up getting kicked out of the game. Okay, here we go. We got a replay. Oh, we seeing Grayson Allen initially involved. Grayson Allen body checks Chet. Oh, Chet. He knocks Chet down. I mean, it's believable, but also, that was a pretty good use of Chet's momentum against him. I'm not going to lie. It was, again, Chet is obviously a wiry guy. You could probably knock him off his... Well, we're going to sit here and say, you could knock Chet off his feet. We're saying if you're Grayson Allen, you could probably knock him off your feet. Obviously, Chet could probably body us. It is what it is. Pause. But Jalen Williams, then, offensive lineman style, defending Chet's honor. Chet's the quarterback. Jalen Williams, the left tackle, getting over there, mixing it up with Grayson Allen. So, yeah, nothing really went down. It just ended up being more Jalen Williams hyping up the crowd. And honestly, Grayson Allen at the end of the day is probably, well, I don't know. Jalen Williams, retaliated, and Grayson Allen didn't do like a ton. Again, he did push Chet, but it was more just he got his momentum going in the right direction and it knocked him over. Chet, a little top heavy. We got to get the review here. Oh. They got him on the wind-up and follow-through. The arena went super quiet there for a second. I mean, I know we just went super quiet on a live feed. Hey, yo. But it was, again, pretty hyped up. They got him with the flagrant 2. He's gone, chat. Hey, yo, I guess we forgot it's 2025. They'll throw you out for anything. But, yeah, they were pretty hyped up. And then you could hear a pin drop when they heard the announcement. That was one of the most locked-in listening to the announcements a crowd has ever just pivoted into that we've heard. Shut. I mean, the OKC crowd is, one of the best. Hey, yo. Oh, yeah. Okay, you can see it. You can see the follow-through for sure. We're not necessarily locked in on the rules for the flagrant 2 first watching the replay. Going back to the 90s, Chad. Hey, yo, maybe the 90s. Oh, Chad, he balled his hands up into fist. He was ready to fight. I don't know if he was squaring up on Chet. Grayson Allen versus Chet. Oh! Chet misses the free throw. Ball don't lie, Chet. It wasn't a flagrant 2. He shouldn't be thrown out. It is what it is. The league is soft in 2025. Pause. So, yeah, Shea can never be as good as MJ because the league is too soft. We agree, chat. We'll get old-timers to call in 2026. We're gonna pivot into a, well, I don't know if being a pro old-timers pod would be bad. Guess what? The legendary NBA guys, they're legendary. And they're fun, and they're, historic and great for a reason. So if we pivoted into defending their honor, I don't think I think we'd probably do that a little bit anyways. It probably wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But, are we going to pivot into these guys aren't as good as the other era type? So Jalen Williams, is he still in the game? A little emotional on the other end, airballing the fadeaway 3. Again, they're up by 37. So you can afford yourself an airball or 2 at this time. But, yeah, it was probably a little bit of an emotional shot for our guy, Jalen Williams. It is what it is. Unfortunately, they should have rattled them a little bit earlier. I don't know if you can sacrifice Grayson Allen in the first quarter of a game like this, but that's got to be the move, is to rattle the Thunder, honestly. Again, you can't honestly beat, well, we can't say you can't beat them from a basketball standpoint. You know, you got Denver looking scary. Again, we'll see what San Antonio develops into by the end of the year here. You know, Wembanyama stays healthy, they're gonna be a scary team. But in terms of maybe getting the mental battle, you know, slowing a series down. But you know, they're such a good defensive team as well too, and because at the end of the day, they have sort of a singular shot maker. I mean, they have the other guys that can create, so if they need the outlets, then, you know, again, that's why they're so good. But because their singular shot maker is as good as he is, you know, they can really, you know, be as good in these slow games as they need to be. But yeah, Jalen Williams bringing the ball up at this point. Well, I guess the defensive pressure forces to give him up. But I was like, they were going to let Jalen Williams have the run here for a second and take over the game after getting into the mix. Shea falling away, though. The physicality, again, a 35-point game. But that's going to be the only way you beat the Thunder is if the refs don't give them the calls. Or maybe the refs give them the calls is the only reason the Thunder win. If we look at it the other way, Chad. I don't know. We're starting to unlock the mysteries of the modern NBA. But Dort fouled, speaking of, by Dylan Brooks. So he will go to the free throw line to make this a 38-point game. I mean, hey, yo, this is, you know, crazy. And again, Phoenix is not like, you know, the next best team in the West. And it's like, oh man, if they get past Phoenix, then, you know, who's gonna get them? But just to be this clearly so much better than some of these teams and the ability to just overwhelm these teams in the games is, you know, again, this team obviously continuing to earn our respect here as an NBA historical team. But yeah, hey, yo, to continue on with News Corner and job openings, you know, maybe bringing in guys that are, you know, speaking of bringing in Urban Meyer or Nick Saban, guys that are too old, maybe the reason that we're thinking about bringing in an older player is because that's what our Colts team just ended up doing, chat. Hey, yo, Phillip Rivers is back as the Colts quarterback, which is still baffling. And I guess technically Phillip Rivers is not the quarterback yet, but also the Colts don't really have a quarterback. And also, well, I guess we have Anthony Richardson. I mean, the fact that that's how you know it's bad, chat. Were we sitting here forgetting about Anthony Richardson? That's not a good sign. We are definitely still the #1 Anthony Richardson fans, but our status may have just slipped a little bit since we forgot about him. So, hey, yo, I mean, come on, Anthony Richardson. You got to get out there and play. Oh, my goodness. If 45-year-old Phillip Rivers is winning reps over Anthony Richardson, then, you know, not to say that it is what it is, but already. But it is what it is at that point because, I mean, and just the fact that 44, I guess 44, you got to be respectful here. You know, 44-year-old Phillip Rivers is the first call that we would make. Is this the Ghostbusters situation, Chad? Who are you going to call? Like, we didn't actually, you know, does it have to be Bill Murray? Like, can we get an older player? Oh, I don't know. You know, is there nobody in the UFL? Like, we can't be the first. USFL, what are these leagues? Canadian football? We're not the first team to lose a quarterback late in the season. It does seem. Where's Josh Johnson? Josh Johnson has been in the league for 12 years because he's had a career of playing in the last month of the season when your quarterback gets hurt and you've got nothing left to do. So maybe Josh Johnson is getting up there to where he is similar to Phillip Rivers' age. I don't know. But isn't there there's got to be a modern Josh Johnson type that is just a free agent every week as well. You know, some of these guys, and we should mention as well too, Ayo, after the Iowa State game, they are playing the Stuart Scott 30 for 30 on ESPN. So, you know, it's just fun to see, you know, RIP. Great to see Stuart Scott just, you know, on ESPN for a lot of screen time, which, you know, you don't even think about that being something. Well, I mean, obviously you do, but, you know, again, it's, you know, obviously RIP. With them being gone, there is that, you know, side of it where you know that they're going to be pale. You know, there's the homage and the presence and the legacy that is still around. But then just to, again, like literally just to look up on the TV and be like, oh yeah, every time I look up, it's just going to be Stuart Scott. Like, you know, it's not necessarily, it's like, oh yeah, that's just, you know, again, unfortunately, you know, but, you know, great for that for tonight. And again, through this 30 for 30 is something that can happen again. And beautiful start as well too. It looks like we're getting, you know, a look at the personal life of him in there. Do we got a little engagement video. Oh, chat, just some sweet, sweet stuff. Hey, yo, this might be I'm not to say that we can't focus, but emotions would, or it's just, you can already tell. I mean, obviously, such a sweet, sweet story, and hey, yo, one of the great guys. Rest in peace. But yeah, for hey, yo, the Colts quarterback situation. Like we're saying, hey, yo, shout out, but there's gotta be not to say that hey, yo, is Phillip Rivers the worst? At some point, if we're not gonna win the Super Bowl, like what are we getting? Not gonna win the Super Bowl with Josh Johnson versus Phillip Rivers? Like, what's the difference at the end of the day? But in honor of Phillip Rivers, the little football that we were watching earlier, and I guess we reran it as well too. It's in the fourth quarter right now, but we threw on the rerun of the last time that Phillip Rivers played for the Colts, which would have been the last time that he played, which was the wild card game against Buffalo, which is a little bit of a Josh Allen turning point game as well too, in terms of him just being a dominant, well, I guess dominant playoff player. He hasn't been to a Super Bowl yet, but again, he has definitely, I think, answered a little bit more of him having like, can he be a guy that does that? There's been some more situational stuff that's happened that he's been a part of more than, maybe him having some disastrous performances, maybe, or, some rougher games like he had in the past. But this was a early, just Josh Allen throws the team on his back in a playoff game, and, they kind of win this game because of him. But this is still, in the 2020s, somehow the best season that the Colts have had is with Phillip Rivers. So in that sense, I do get maybe they calling him in that way. But again, it's not like the coaching staff is the same as well too. Shout out. I want to say that was Frank Reich was coaching when we had Rivers back then. So it's not like there's that familiarity with like a playbook or a staff or something. Like, 11-5 in 2020, the best season that Frank Reich had as well too. 9th in offense, 10th in defense, 11th in the simple rating system on Pro Football Reference. So not a bad team that year. Kind of feisty again, didn't make it through the playoffs. It is what it is. But Rivers was, and this is at 39. He was 68%, 4,100 yards, 24 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And the fact that he wants to get out there and even play, risk getting hit, I mean, he's a maniac, Chad. At 45, to be away from 5 years, what's the longest pause anybody's ever been away from football and then return? I mean, this has got to be up there. Just take 5 years off and then return. And then who's taken 5 years off, in the peak of their career? It probably wouldn't be by choice. And, it would probably be more them just being out of the league and having to work their way back in. Maybe either like get a CFL stint or something like that. Just being unrecognized, not getting, the scouts, and then all of a sudden they kind of work their way back into the league. But yeah, again, like Brissett is a starter in Arizona now, so he's an option. It's not like we can trade for Kyler or something like that. And you've got Jameis is in New York, so unfortunately we can't get Jameis. He can't be like a multi-team quarterback either, which would be a good rule change. Jameis can just quarterback any team he wants if they need him. But for now, it looks like he's going to be stuck with the Giants. So I don't know if we just search like best free agent, if we can spell agent, QBs. Can we just go right now and then see if Bing AI is able to search? Can it just give us a job status update for some people? Oh, chat. Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I don't know if he had any moments, but for some reason that name just got me excited. Pause. Taylor Heineke. Okay. Sudfeld. Clayton Tune. Bryce Perkins as well, too. Bryce Perkins. Hey, I'd be pro Bryce Perkins. It is what it is. NFL quarterback free agents 2025. Okay, yeah, these guys are all signed from the off season here. Let's see what this website has to say as an option. Sign. Garoppolo? Is Garoppolo unsigned right now? I mean, come on. I know that maybe in the past, I don't know if right now is like, this is the time we've wanted our guy Jimmy Garoppolo on the team. But if it's possible, okay, he is the quarterback for the Rams. That's what I thought, but apparently this is not updated. Wentz is signed. Beathard? Okay, Stidham? Oh, chap. Desmond Ridder! Hey, yo, maybe Flacco? Whoa, Flacco is on a team as well, too. Stidham is still in the Broncos. Hey, yo. Kyle Trask, he's on Tampa. that'd be a interesting one if he was available. Anyways, Rippin, Easton Stick. He is signed. Pause. Ellinger is in Denver as well too. So I don't know if we would have been excited about him in the past, but at this point, Ellinger versus Phillip Rivers. Teddy Bridgewater, a high school head coach, or Phillip Rivers. Tim Boyle as well too. Chat. What about? I mean, hey yo, do we have to? I'm not saying hey yo. Do we have to mention the name? But do we have to look up how old's Kaepernick at this point, chat? Hey yo, is this the time in 2025? Oh my goodness, Kaepernick's 38. Kaepernick's younger than Phillip Rivers was the last time he played for the Colts. That was 5 years ago. Oh, chat. This is bad. This is not good. I don't even know. I guess he probably still wants to play in the NFL, but you're telling me 38-year-old Colin Kaepernick versus 45. We're going to start rounding up 50-year-old Phillip Rivers versus 38-year-old Colin Kaepernick? Oh, chat. That is crazy. What about Tebow, chat? I was listening to some old Steve Bayless. Who's that? Is that the third Bayless brother? Because don't forget Rick Bayless in there as well too, chat. Stud cooking show guy. But I was listening to some old Skip Bayless clips of him talking about how he'd rather have Tebow versus Brady, which is honestly, I was gonna say it's on the level of taking Iggy versus Steph. Or, versus over Steph with the aliens with the death beam pointed at the earth. Shout out to Max Kellerman back with a new show. But that take from Bayless just not having the same sort of meme lifeness. I mean, it's a credit to Kellerman for the way he's able to sell the point that, that clip is able to live on that way. But that take is just as crazy. And, the thing that is not necessarily the redeeming factor of the Kellerman take, but the thing that does make it interesting in terms of a would you rather situation, and not to say that, it isn't a very important shot, obviously, that you're taking. You got the death beam pointed at Earth, so you really need to make that basket. But just in theory, it is one basket that you have to make. Versus if you're just claiming that you'd rather have Tim Tebow versus Tom Brady, like now I guess, you've signed him to a contract, like that's how you're building your team at that point. You're constructing around Tebow. But Tebow is also 38. So Tebow himself is, a decade younger than Phillip Rivers at that point. So I don't know. Would I rather have Tim Tebow as our quarterback or Phillip Rivers? And speaking of, Tebow versus Brady, I was thinking, like, if we're calling older quarterbacks that have been out of the league for a while, maybe Tom Brady really does love the Fox job. I don't know. And I guess now he's an owner of the Raiders. So could we get the owner of the Raiders to be the quarterback for the Colts? How does that work? But Brady, is he still 44, 45? Wait, how old's Brady right now? We got to double check Brady's age. I mean, if we're going, the Brian Johnson biological age for Brady, he gets younger every year. Brian Johnson, is he that millionaire that's out there trying to reverse his aging? Like, he literally should just be on TB12. Alex Guerrero's already figured it out. He just needs to get on the plan. Okay, Brady's 48. So 48-year-old Tom Brady versus 45-year-old Phillip Rivers. Hey, yo. I don't know if it's possible. I guess with Rodgers being the oldest quarterback in the league this year at 41, that would be, and I guess the oldest, like, playing quarterback in the league. If there's somebody older than 41, well, I guess there is now. It's Phillip Rivers. But if there's somebody else that's older than 41, and I'm just not thinking of them, then, hey, yo, shout out to you. But in terms of somebody with a consistent starting job every week. So right now you've got Rodgers. Yeah, okay, 42 years old. Again, he hasn't necessarily had a 5-year break from the league as well, too. So that is, again, just sort of extensive time to be away. And then all of a sudden you don't have an off season to prepare. I mean, again, are we expecting any Colts free agent move to be the one that can help us still win the AFC? Like, that's not what I'm saying, but it's just still a little confusing. But you've got him at 65% completion percentage, 197 yards a game, and as long as he is decently efficient. Where's his interception percentage? I would say under 2%, so he's right at 2% right now at the interception percentage, which is a little higher than you would like, but also 5.8 touchdown percent is not too bad as well too. So and they can kind of squeeze out some low-scoring games as it is. But the mobility factor, of course, is going to be tough to watch. And at the end of the day, hopefully he's okay, chat. Hey, yo, hopefully he's just able to be okay. Because, again, that type of not just being your body posture just not being accustomed to playing football for 5 years, and then all of a sudden you got to get back in the mix at the end of the season. And some of these teams are going to still be competing for playoff spots. It's going to be some divisional games and stuff's in there. So, these teams are going to be going after him, chat. Hey, yo, it is what it is. But I get maybe just, if you're kind of residing to waving the white flag for the season, but it kind of is that as well, too. So I don't know if you feel like this is a team where you can have to try to be not desperate again. You can't make a trade or, what is the crazy thing you could possibly do to, get a quarterback at this point? Could you talk somebody into cutting their quarterback and then you're going to, under the table, give them give them the compensation under the table is kind of crazy. But, you're going to secretly hook them up with something that is, maybe just not a direct trade. I don't know what the move would be. Again, if it is Garoppolo, you're like, hey, Kroenke, we'll trade you this 3rd-round pick for this 6th-round pick in the draft. And that's probably a good trade as well, too. We'll give you this 4th-round pick for a 6th-round pick in the draft on draft night. If you give us Garoppolo, maybe that's a lot of good faith for NFL teams to operate in. But, maybe you feel like you have to do something besides just, because this feels a little like when they, is this the craziest thing a team has done since the Colts hired Jeff Saturday as the head coach? But again, that team was tanking. Jeff Saturday was a really good culture guy, was just going to go in there and get the vibes right for the team for the last couple of games and, just set the pick in the right direction. And ultimately, we got to get Anthony Richardson in here to help turn the team around, build around the franchise quarterback. But, it's like, okay, we're not going to get the long-term option here. We don't need to win a ton of games, but can we get the culture and the vibe set in the right direction? And maybe Phillip Rivers, he keeps kind of the culture steady in the building, professionalism. I don't know what terms you just want to stereotype, throw out there for Phillip Rivers. But I get that side of things. But again, it's a good team this year as well, too. It hasn't been playing well the last month, so it's definitely a good stretch of the season. But but still, with the record that we have, a playoff competitive team and not a team that can necessarily tank for a good pick and get a quarterback in the draft as well, too. So it is, once again, obviously in that borderline sort of territory for what should be the move at the quarterback spot for the long term. But just for this season, I'm obviously still a little confused, but shout out. At the end of the day, like we're saying, that was the last, really, really good season we had from start to finish. Obviously, the way we were playing this year, was the best offensive NFL history. So it's the best we've been playing in the 2020s. But in terms of, a quarterback not getting hurt to end the year and the team actually making the playoffs, we did actually make the playoffs with Phillip Rivers and did almost win a playoff game with him. If it wasn't for, and those sneaky kids, the old man Phillip Rivers would have gotten the win. So maybe him with Frank or without Frank, better coach Steve. What's his name, Chad? Shane Steichen, Steve Steichen, Shane Steichen. Different offense. Maybe Steichen's able to get the production that he needs out of it. I mean, I guess Steichen again at the end of the day wants to make the call. If there's not an Eagles guy that they've had in the mix the past couple years, where's Tanner McKee at, Chad? Tanner McKee's not available. He's probably he might be the Eagles quarterback in the couple of weeks. I don't know. We'll have to. Well, I guess we do know. Jalen Hurts probably still going to be the starter there. Long-term shout out. Check the tapes. Pro Jalen Hurts pod. But we can't get Tanner McKee on the Colts. Hey, yo. It is what it is. But again, it's not going to be a team that. And I guess we don't even have our first-round pick. Oh, chat. I mean, again, the Phillip Rivers signing, I guess, doesn't necessarily make this worse. But it is just a funny thing to continue to throw into the timeline of oh, Daniel Jones got hurt. We traded our first round pick. Daniel Jones got hurt. Then we signed Phillip Rivers. It's well, that kind of happened because of the one thing, but also, yes, we did sign Phillip Rivers. So, 44 years old. Shout out. Again, I don't know, oldest quarterback to play. I don't know if George Blanda. Hey, yo, kids. Listen up. George Blanda was a guy back in the day. Used to be a quarterback and then became a kicker. The longest career in NFL history. Played from 1949 to 1975. Is that what it said? How many seasons is that? 26 years. So, yeah, he did play till he was 48. And I guess was listed as quarterback his entire career. But pretty sure there was a kicking run in there as well, too. Oh, yeah, some first-team All-Pros listed. All-time leader in extra points made and attempted. So, a historic kicker in some sense as well. And I guess really for a lot of his career was, just doing the double duties in general, and then just assuming the years that he was, not throwing as many passes. He was still handling a lot of the field goal duties on those years. But he was a first-team All-Pro quarterback in 61. So at 34, 36 touchdowns, 22 picks. Whoa, he had 27 touchdowns and 45 picks the next year, but 3 game-winning drives. I mean, you're going to have some game-winning drives if you're throwing 45 picks in 14 games. Holy cow, chat. That literally has to be the NFL record. How many picks a game is he at? 1.5 picks a game in back-to-back years. 1.57. Oh, wait, that was 3. 3 picks a game in 1962. I mean, we probably have had guys have that, but, for like 3 or 4 games. Not for, almost entire seasons, 14 games. 45 interceptions. Multiple 30 interception plus seasons, but that's not important. Was, I guess, at 44 years old, and again, this is in 1971, he was 44, 32 for 58 on the year, 55% completion percentage, 378 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 6 picks. So that was in 14 games, but could Phillip Rivers have that in like 4 or 5 games? That's probably like a game for him, honestly. Again, 378 and 4 touchdowns, 6 picks might be. Could you have 4 touchdowns and 6 picks in a game? I mean, that'd be a crazy offensive game. Be a fun one to watch. I mean, be like, hey, Phillip Rivers is back. But even how old is Flacco? Like, shout out, Flacco's been very sustainable at times this year and has definitely been statistically a lot better, over the last couple years than maybe we would expect him to be as an older quarterback. But still, he's just now 40. So 40 is getting into be new, is just now getting to be newer territory that guys are constantly achieving at that starting level for quarterbacks these days. But for a guy to take 5 years off and then return in his mid-40s, I don't know. We'll see if that starts a new run for precedent in the NFL. But, yeah, I guess, and he definitely still has kids around as well, too. So, I mean, he's had so many that he's probably, gone through cycles of like, okay, I want to be with my family. Okay, I've had it. I'm good with being a family man for now. Been a family man for a couple of years. Let's mix this up. Let's go back to being a quarterback. And you know what? When he plays this year for a couple weeks, goes back home, he'll probably, still have more kids to raise to be a family man when he gets back home. So he'll be fine there. It is what it is. But IT, was that in the rundown? I'm not sure. But yeah, shout out to Flacco. Yeah, shout out to Flacco. But shout out to Phillip Rivers as well, too, for being back in the NFL. We'll see how it goes. We're 2 touchdown underdogs to the Seahawks this week. But maybe that's a sleeper game. The Seahawks have definitely started. Maybe we get like a first quarter spread. I don't know. First drive field goal for the Colts. I don't know what we bet here. But the Seahawks defense is definitely very capable of generating turnovers. And the pressure and flying around of that defense is definitely going to be problems for Rivers. And, the Colts have been torched by some good receivers this year in the past. So, I mean, hey, start JSN in fantasy this week is our advice for you. Because, the Colts are probably going to give up some yards, would be my guess. And, it's not like we traded for a corner. It's just because he's hurt. That's the only reason. Oh, shout out Muhammad Ali making an appearance in the Stuart Scott doc. Rest in peace to that, the legend as well, too. But, I mean, again, we're not saying that there's a blistering, is that the way to say it? A blistering QB market at this point. I mean, I guess as we even think about the names, what about some of the colleges? Like, where is Shea Patterson at? What about Matt Corral? What's the league they got going right now, Chet? USFL 2025. I know they tend to have to like rebrand and reshuffle every now and then to stay alive. Shout out. You know, you got to do what you got to do. Wait, so the XFL and the USFL are both still in existence? Oh, no, wait. Yeah, the XFL and USFL formed to merge a new league. So wait a second. Okay, the USFL is not in existence anymore. So we have to find the UFL. Let's retry this search, chat. Maybe it is back to just the USFL. But here, UFL, United Football League, not Ultimate Frisbee League, which is definitely of the two UFLs. I guess we have to remember. Is it UFL? It used to be UFL, but what is it now? Wait. Well, do we have to go back and look on the old Instagram? We'll have to double check the post that Sam has been sending us about some of the updates recently. The Alley Cats have been stacked. Wait a second. We fire up Instagram, and of course we got updates. Let's see what it says about Michigan former head coach Sherrone Moore. He's fired. Of course, the policies that have been violated. His status, personal status for his relationships. The school is not required to pay the remaining of his reported $5 million a year. So with this as well too, again, there is obviously the arrest that is lingering over this, and we'll see what becomes of that. We're not gonna I guess we'll just see, I guess, is what hopefully is the appropriate thing to say. But in terms of reacting to what the news is for this part of it, again, we've seen a lot of these guys, just for what college football is, you have to buy these guys out. But for Sherrone Moore, not say that he had the biggest buyout potentially, but it is something that they get to avoid now with this not this approach. We're not saying that, but yeah. So wait, it is UFA, Ultimate Frisbee Association, Pro Frisbee. Shout out. So we got to see who are these UFL quarterbacks that could potentially be starters for the Colts. Oh, you love a good Google Doc, chat. Shout out. By totals, look at this old school, chat. What do we got to put in the fantasy points ourselves? Is there any USFL or UFL fantasy leagues out there? DM us at Rem and Sam Pod on Instagram if you guys have a UFL fantasy league. That would be pretty crazy. Okay, some passing stats here. We only had 3 guys with over 1,000 passing yards. One of them was Bryce Perkins. So yeah, we probably should have signed Bryce Perkins, Jalen McClendon, Jordan Tamu, and Luis Perez was at 22.94, but 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Jordan Tamu, 2,155 yards, 54% completion, but 17 touchdowns, 4 picks. Why not, chat? Why not? What do you need completions for? Just get him chucking the ball deep, throwing some big plays, maybe hit on a couple. Kellen Mond, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks, 850 yards. Any other names we mentioned that we might know? Max Duggan, Matt Corral, EJ Perry is another familiar name as well too. Anthony Brown, 207 yards, 1 touchdown, 3 interceptions, 48% completion percentage. Brendan Silvers, 13 for 18, 72% completion percentage, 205 yards and a touchdown. 2 games played. Maybe we need to see him throw a couple more passes just to see what is going on there. Maybe there's some untapped potential. Pause with his game as well. By efficiency rating, so Bryce Perkins was the number 1 efficiency rating quarterback, or Luis Perez was. Tamu, maybe not as great in the efficiency rating, 54.4. Mike DeLiello is a 64.3, and then McClendon at 64.5, however they have it rated out, I guess. And they don't even have it sorted properly. It is what it is. So, yeah, Perkins, Tamusi, there's some options there. Duggan, and again, just probably a plethora of names if we go through the last couple of years of college football head coaching or college football quarterbacking to see what potential names we could think of as well, too. Manziel, chat? Can we get Manziel? Well, I mean, Manziel's on the Nightcap pod. Is Ocho Cinco want to be the quarterback for the Colts? Maybe we get some of the Nightcap audience cheering for the team. get some online buzz for this team. And, Ocho Cinco, I don't know if he's having players in the shows. Maybe it's good for Pittman's channel as well, too. Some crossover nightcap versus Michael Pittman content could be a interesting lane to go into if we were able to bring him in. But yeah, so again, we're never going to be critical of anybody getting a job. Hey, shout out to Phillip Rivers. He went out and got himself a job. He's a NFL quarterback now at 44 years old. You love a guy starting a new career later in life. It is Phillip Rivers, a midlife crisis. He's back to being an NFL quarterback. It is what it is. But Oklahoma City, 135. Phoenix, 83. There's 2 minutes left. Oh, man, chat. Oh, man, this has been a brutal game. It is what it is. But we got one more quick break, and then we'll be back, chat, to wrap up the live stream for the Wednesday night NBA Cup blowout pause. And then I guess we'll have to, watch Spurs versus Lakers in private. And I guess NBA Cup, we're taking it seriously. We're locked in. It is what it is. But, we'll be right back, chat, to wrap up the show right after this. Okay, chat, before we go real fast, we have to, it's important. We got to look up a list and check out this top 10 real quick before we get out of here. Rap TV dropped their top 10. Hey, yo, chat, we've all been waiting for it. Top 10 songs of the year so we can see what this is. Or I guess here, we can also, let's look at the up next class as well, too. Oh, Insider Access. This is behind a paywall. Hey, yo, obviously the XXL freshman list has been that prestige, sort of all rookie team that you can achieve in hip hop, over at least growing up for us. We'll see if the next up, Rap TV next up, gets in there as well, too. And, we can definitely live in some of the mainstream areas a little bit more than not. So some of these names, can even be recommendations for us personally as well, too. With Nino Paid making the list, Hurricane Wisdom has been somebody that a lot of people that we know have been bumping and told us to listen to as well. So that name is familiar. Might get him into the rotation. Lilo, New Detroit. Ooh, Eminem, Big Sean already hung championship banners for their area, but Lilo is part of a younger class shaped by different influences and building in its own curriculum instead of following in the city's old playbook. So, hey, yo, you'd love to see him innovating there. We've also got AZ Chike, shout out as well. I mean, obviously getting the popularity off of the GNX features and the Kendrick bump there. So Camo chat. Hey, yo, this is the Rems and Old Man Corner, and can't say some of these names. Georgiana making the list as well, too. Project 219 features Glorilla, Lil Yachty, Rio de Young OG, and Frisco. Rio de Young OG is a top tier name. Do we need a all name team for 2025? We get it for college football. Maybe we need it for hip hop as well. 1300 Saint, newest member of Young Thug's Young Slime Life camp. Are we cool enough to know that that's what YSL stands for? Hey, yo, chat. I don't even know. That might be Playboy Cardi. I'm not sure. I guess, is it... what are these... We're not cool. We don't know how these guys are connected anymore. It is what it is. But Skrilla also making the list as well. So, shout out. Some people to definitely go catch up on. To not get... Maybe that'll be our commitment for 2025, is to... maybe dig into more of the regional scenes and stay out of the mainstream. But like we said before, it's not just like the mainstream from this era. I mean, if you check our Wrapped, it is like the top guys, are going to be still the main guys from our day. But, again, obviously music's been around for a while at this point. So you can go for the mainstream from every decade and have a great rotation of music, which is where we get a lot of our variety from, is, sort of going back throughout and just listening to music all throughout time instead of, again, maybe getting regional with the current music. But maybe we'll go that way a little bit more in 2026 as well, too. Could definitely be time to have some new artists introduced that way. But top 10 songs of 2025, I guess we'll see how it says they're forming the list here. Crowning something as the best in any category is a daunting task. This is especially true with a level playing field and thousands of options to choose from, with 2025 being another fantastic year for hip-hop, and the difficulty making a decision like this is through the roof, but we have had it, we wouldn't have had it anyway. There's a multitude of factors to look at when determining a song is one of the best, let alone singular winner in a competition like this. Impact, quality, memorability play a huge role in whether the song can stand with the big dogs. Streams, however, didn't really affect these choices, as conversations about numbers can lack substance. So wait, impact, quality, and memorability. Okay, so yeah, it doesn't really say anything about numbers there. Impact, maybe a little, but sure, after plenty of debates and maybe a few in-office arguments, whoa, hopefully everybody's okay there, we finally landed on a top 10 we stand behind. Below is why the songs rose above the rest in 2025. Okay, here we go. Ensalada. Number 10, Freddie Gibbs, Anderson .Paak, Alfredo 2, making the list. Shout out. Some good features on that album as well too. From Jid, we'll see if Jid is on the list a little bit. Maybe like Community might be in the top 10. You imagine the clips are in this as well too. But shout out for Freddie Gibbs. You know, at some point, if he's dropping a project, he's probably going to have a verse on there that's going to be in contention for, you know, verse of the year. Like, you know, can you say flow of the year is a pause, but like, you know, lyrical rhythm cadence of the year, you know, he's going to have that in some point of a track as well too. You know, the jazzy samples, the Alchemist, you know, throwing heat like he always does in consideration for MVP for 2025 as well too. Speaking of Jid, maybe we get multiple Jid appearances on this, we'll see, but Bodies by Offset and Jid was definitely a fun hit. I would say this was that good balance of, you know, kind of maybe your more lyrical, balanced people can get behind a hit like this because of Jid's performance, but maybe it's not so overplayed on the rap caviar that if you cue this one up, again, it can kind of bring a fun environment, but it's not like, oh, you know, hey, yo, we're playing this song again. And maybe even a little, maybe it could even be a recommendation at times as well. But I mean, the Offset album this year was really one of the great projects. That was one of the greats, Chad. Hey, yo, shout out to Offset. But, you know, it was a really, really fun project that he dropped this year. One of the maybe arguably top 10 albums of the year in terms of the hip hop scene. And this single being a top 10. If we are talking again about impact quality, like the funness, the rememberability, or, you know, again, we're not necessarily like ranking off of the Rap Caviar playlist, but if it is a little bit of that, then yes, this is definitely one of them. And I think this was on our Spotify Wrapped 100. So, you know, again, for us personally playing it, we were definitely bumping it a lot. And I think for the new 2025, you know, as much, and we talked about it as much as maybe we'll even talk about it a little bit more in our own year-end list. You know, we've talked about as much as we've loved that new Jid album, this might be the Jid song that we would queue up on the aux for this year. And again, hey, yo, it is, you know, a little bit more quote-unquote aux friendly as well. But a song like Community or, you know, Of McPhee or even You Ugly or something that he's all dropped this year, you know, on that new project, could all be kind of aux banger type songs as well too. I mean, Skate's another one that you could play in an aux setting or like at a party or something and could definitely be super fun. But this is, you know, the number one Jid associate track that you're gonna be playing from this year, and also Offset as well too. Though again, there's a couple off that other album, off his album as well that are, you know, very aux friendly as well. Money on Money by Young Thug and Future. So, you know, the album it is what it was, but the high points, again, you can still see what Thug is capable of. Future on a feature, I think is not, I think, but maybe a little underrated right now in terms of, you know, we wouldn't necessarily say like, is Future on a generational feature run, but it's like Future keeps popping up on these features and these songs keep becoming hits. So, you know, it's just kind of a steady, you know, again, really good feature run here for Future. We definitely go back and double check, you know, Ayo, the list, but it just seems like, you know, Ayo, his hit rate recently on those has been pretty great. But Dark Thoughts by Lil Tecca, of course, one of the underrated hit makers we have these days. And his albums definitely, you know, he has both. His albums do hold up in terms of a start to, you know, you can listen to the whole thing and they have quality all throughout. And he'll have a song or two that really, really plays well and gets a lot of airtime. And, or, you know, the Rap Caviar playlist, like we're saying, is really pushed in those types of things, or I don't know, popping off on TikTok. Doesn't say that here. We'll have to see. But yeah, he is, in terms of, you know, underrated, like we're saying, star power type guys, definitely on the list. You could make an argument that he is like a, you know, like a third team, third team, you know, all hip hop guy right now, 2025 state of the game. But, you know, again, we'd have to go through and make that list. Nokia by Drake, not in the top 5. Okay, second team all song for Drake. You know, well, we're just scrolling through the list here. Hey, okay, so we got him all along at 5 by Gunna. I guess that's our spoiler alert as we go through. But you know, Drake, of course, with the collab project, you know, had its debates about what, of course, the quality of that was. and not to compare everything to LeBron, of course, but if this was, LeBron moving into the era of him being in that second team all NBA type run, it was great because it's like, the fact that LeBron is accomplishing those level of achievements this late into his career was really great. But, again, he was still outmatching his performance compared to his peers. So even in 22, like Steph had the run where he is maybe that year, a better player than LeBron. Obviously, he won the finals and was awesome that year. Maybe his best, individual performance is in that finals. But for where LeBron was at in his career and what he was doing, then now it just becomes LeBron glaze. But I think you get what we're saying. Obviously LeBron's, a couple years ahead of him at that point. So it's fair to have a little bit different expectations for that point in his career. Is it fair to say that blank slate, Steph's a better player at that time? Yes. Is it, again, fair to say that LeBron is what at that point, what is he capable of on a basketball court? What are the expectations? Again, that moves a little bit different. I guess the point would be, again, sort of the expectations changing for Drake as an artist, and again compared to his peers as well too, where he is on the same timeline. Obviously as a guy like Kendrick, it would be like if Steph and LeBron were in the same draft class, and then in 2022 you're like, wait a second, LeBron's still pretty good, he's like second, third team all NBA, but Steph is like winning the finals, and now Steph is the guy later in his career. But again, there's like that separation of years where they're at different spots in their career. If Drake had started in the early 2000s, it's like Drake and 50 Cent are competing again, dropping albums, and now all of a sudden Kendrick comes along one of these days and is dropping his projects, and like, oh, Good Kid Mad City's a hit, and To Pimp a Butterfly's a hit, and now all of a sudden he's beefing with Drake 10 years down the line, and it's like, move over. And it was this in a sense of him being the number one guy. But if it's like from a legacy, the legends before me status, move. And again, I get that Drake had him on tour and all that stuff, but they're still of the same class at the end of the day. But if it's like, hey, now it's time for my generation to take over, there is a different thing than that. Versus, again, Kendrick is, I guess, did he drop a song in 2025? We'll have to remember, I guess. GNX was in 2024. Am I crazy? I guess he could have featured on one, but I guess he did feature on some stuff, but did he drop a single in 2025? I don't know. But again, he is obviously at this point, in the first team all tier, and Drake is still definitely there. We check the numbers, but at least in terms of us arguing about the quality of Drake's music, the internet community nerds have been arguing about, we're just throwing that term out there. Again, we're literally arguing about it, but maybe we shouldn't be saying he's in second team. I liked No Key. I wouldn't be mad if it came on right now. I don't think it did hit a little bit overplayed, but it backed off a little bit, and as part of the argument, you could say that it didn't have the legs that the life of a song like Luther. Luther was on the charts more, but definitely hit even a little bit more of overplayed territory. Now you have 30 for 30 to make up for that, and you can listen to that instead. And we would rather listen to 30 for 30 than Nokia. Kendrick wins at the end of the day in our mind, but you do have Drake in second team all hit making for 2025. So again, Kendrick and Party Next Door. Maybe this is like B cuts for Iceman. We'll have to see. So a low key Drake season is still 25, 7-7. Is that the point? At the end of the day, I mean, No Key is still fun, so who cares? But Him All Along by Gunna at number 5. Shout out. I don't mean to scroll past it, but I mean, we have to expose ourselves a little bit. Do we need to get Gunna in the rotation in 2025? Are we so mainstream that we're not listening to Gunna? That's, mainstream early 2000s and then previous. Like we said, we're going backwards for some pause. For some reason, we haven't added, the newer guys, the new guys like Gunna, these new superstars out there. So maybe 2026 will be the year we finally listen to Gunna a lot. But he doesn't need our streams. It is what it is. Pause. The Clips, So Be It at number 4. One we mentioned recently, we've been bumping a lot. Again, as it says here, one of the best songs off the album, but we do kind of trend to bumping the features, again, with Kendrick and Tyler. But in terms of the Clips songs, kind of solo songs, that is maybe the best one. And another good aux one as well too, because some of the ones like the Birds don't, not to say that they're bad songs, but you do get a little singy in there as well, and maybe the lyrics on the verses are a little bit more thoughtful and kind of laid out, a little bit slower than maybe not quite built for just, rapping and hanging out or having I'm not saying having a good time, but it does lend itself on the aux very well too. Yeet at number 3. Come and go. Pause. We need to get Sam in here to tell us what project this is off of. Dropped in early August on the Dangerous Summer EP. So again, as we need to even catch up on some of the newer guys. Big X the Plug, are we going to get one of his country songs in here? Not saying that that's the album that we're listening to from him. We're still bumping Take Care. It is what it is. The Big X the Plug album. Like I said, not, I guess, both Take Cares, of course. But yeah, the Yeet project getting some love. Top 3. Shout out. We have been bumping Orchestrate a little bit. I guess that was the song was probably our most played Yeet song in 2025. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, but yeah, for us that's the way it was anyways. Like Wheezy, Playboy Cardi number 2. So is this where they can say, impact and memorability? Oh, chat, and there we go. Shot calling by NBA Youngboy number 1. So yeah, that's where they can start going the impact. We're not necessarily, the quality, whatever. I don't, we're not trying to sit here and say that that's not quality music. We're really going to get in our old head bag. Pause if we start saying that, because again, these guys are dominating the game. So if it sounds different than something that you're used to, and I'm even talking to myself a little bit here as well too, it obviously doesn't mean it's not bad, because there's people that love it. Then it's good. It's something, and that's not there can be music that's you're like, I just don't understand, not even in hip hop, but in other genres, you're like, I just don't understand what this sounds like. And again, we're not saying like, I can't what are the kids, what's the new rap music these days with, NBA Youngboy, they don't make it like these old heads do. Pause, Playboy Cardi, Ayo, what happened to music? And I get, there is some of that stuff about, it is being made differently, but maybe we're just the old heads. Maybe you do age out of this stuff a little bit quicker than you think. Maybe when you do get in your mid to early 20s, you start going, you start having that disconnect with what is being dropped. I don't know, but for those artists to be dominating the game again, this is who is dominating the game. And Rap TV does post their rankings of like which artists are at the top of the games, which songs are at the top of the power rankings throughout the course of the year. So you can't track, I guess, through their lens anyways, sort of what is that quote unquote like first, second all team for, whatever a given year is. But yeah, it was, and again, you still have 5 spots. So you still probably could put obviously Kendrick and Drake in 2 of those spots, but you got, again, like NBA Youngboy in one of those other spots. You've got Playboy Cardi there as well too, and then maybe you get the Clips in there as a group. Tyler can make a case, but even 12 months ago we were, and I guess Travis is still streaming at these numbers. He's still touring at a crazy number, so he didn't drop an album. So we still probably got to put Travis on first team as well too. It is what it is. I mean, if we're just going streaming numbers and stuff like that, what they could do from a tour, who knows what Eminem could do at a tour. Could Eminem sell as many tickets as NBA Youngboy? And then, he still definitely streams some more numbers as well too. It is what it is. But yeah, the game changes. Time shifts. There's new names that take over and dominate and take over in different lanes as well too. This guy's a little bit more commercially successful. This guy's a little bit more lyrical. This guy combines both. There's always going to be that balance of the talent throughout the game. And again, like we're saying right now, these were the stars for 2025. You got to give it up for the stats and the numbers that they were able to put up. Like we were saying, we can't help that Shea is out here putting up 30 points a game on 50% field goal percentage. We're not, what do you want us to do about that? We're looking at the stats, we're watching the games, like it's just happening. Like we just have to say it because it's just happening. We have to talk about it because it's happening. Like, NBA Youngboy's just making, music that people like. And, again, whatever you want to say, good music. He's making good music. If you want to, is it Nas? Is it, is it Mobb Deep? Is it T.I.? Shout out. Maybe it is closer to T.I. I'm not sure. But it is, it's what the kids like these days. Hey, I'm not saying that NBA YoungBoy is 50 Cent of 2025, but there is, again, there's gonna be the guys that are, I'm not saying that are just popular and the guys that are just lyrical, but there is gonna be some guys that are gonna be more popular than lyrical. There's gonna be some guys that are more lyrical than popular. There's gonna be some guys that are both. Hey, that's our breakdown of the game. It is what it is. But yeah, shout out. Not to say that Rap TV wouldn't recognize NBA YoungBoy, Playboy Cardi at the top of their list, and Yeet, and then the Clips, and then Gunna as their top 5, and then Drake, 6, and then what did we have? Lil Tecca, Thug and Future, Offset and Jid, and then Freddie Gibbs, Alchemist, and Anderson .Paak. So that could be pretty close to a first, second team ranking for 2025. Again, you're pulling from some of the bigger projects from the year as well too. But I mean, all these guys have been consistent. I guess except for like Playboy Cardi and stuff. But and I guess like Jid hasn't dropped in a couple years. But and the features that he's popped out on, when the guys have popped out, they've consistently been at the top of the game in whatever way that they have been showcasing their music for the most part. So this could definitely make a lot of sense. And we know like Ye is definitely dropped off, not like again from like a Spotify streaming number standpoint, but from just like a current legacy, like a current state of the game sort of standpoint, again, he's dropped off because of other reasons. But just in terms of, again, where the new music is falling as well too. Again, it's impossible at this point to separate where the new music falls compared to where he is at kind of personally over the last couple of years. But even I don't want to say like J. Cole's not one of the best rappers, right? Like that's not the point. But and I'm not going to underestimate his ability when I guess if he decides to drop the project, hey, is he just ASAP Rocky at this point? We don't even know. But, we don't even know. Maybe Cole is the next ASAP Rocky at this point. We already have ASAP Rocky. That is like, maybe he's just a legend that was. Lil Wayne, the Carter 6, he's not really competing from an album standpoint with these guys anymore. Maybe he hasn't really been, but it's like, hey, this is the game now. You know what? Lil Tecca versus Cole in 2025. I get there's a lyrical thing there, but, maybe there's a debate in terms of who is, who could drop a hit song. I don't know what the argument is. Who's going to drop a better double entendre in a track? Like, hey, however you want to phrase it. I'm sure we could find a way. But, you just got to give credit to where credit is due for obviously the people making hit music these days and for providing the Spotify playlist with plenty of songs. Because like we've talked about, there is that conversation for what has been going on in terms of the can we say the concentrated popularity, the mega popularity of certain things, hey, there's no hip hop in the Billboard, the top 40, where is it going in the charts? But again, you look at the music, it's like, there's great music and there's great music for, like I'm saying, all these lanes. So this one is ranked in a certain way, but if you were ranking it a different way, it's like, oh, this list is the top 10 songs of the year. And you've got Lil Sims on here. You've got Dave on here. You've got, I'm trying, who are the most lyrical people in 2025? I know Dave's a crazy, I'm sure he dropped all 10 of his songs were the 10 best songs of 2025. Saba No ID was another one that's the third one that I was thinking of. Like if you had there's another one where you got like a track from those 3 albums on here, or like Balloonerism as well too. And again, that's another one that's like totally deserving of any placement that it gets. But this one focusing on this way, and obviously Balloonerism's in a little bit different conversation, R.I.P. Mac Miller. But, again, shout out. There is a shift in the game. Do you want to say that? Again, like Tekka's been around a little bit. Hey, some of these guys have been around for a minute. But them emerging as, oh, yeah, this is who's running the game now is definitely, definitely taking a step forward there. Nothing from NLE the Great on the list. Nothing from the diss track battle between him. Was it also between him and NBA YoungBoy? Hey, what does that mean when we don't even know who was in the diss battle there? But I could see him taking another step up in 2026 as well too. Maybe he has another level of popularity that he could unlock. Who knows? But yeah, I don't know what kind of lists that will be, unveiling here at the end of the year as December winds down, as we wind down sort of the 25 for 25 watch as well too, the first quarter century here of the the first quarter century. Yeah, it would be the first quarter century, because then you have a second quarter century and a third and a fourth, hopefully. But, the first quarter century of the 21st century as we wrap that up, Chet. Hey, somehow we stumbled into well, we haven't made it yet, but, there is a potential that we could stumble into 2026. So, maybe even making it to December 2025 is not too bad. Who knows? But, hey, we will hopefully be back Friday night, following along more, basketball, NBA, more sports stuff. I think there's something else special happening Friday night. I'm not even trying to tease it out. We just got to relook at the schedule and see what's going on. So, check back with us on Friday this weekend, because there is going to be something special cooked up for you guys. Holiday season, Christmas season. I don't know if we're got like a gift exchange at some point here or something, but we'll figure all that stuff out, I guess. You can just follow us here on the YouTube to see what happens over the month, as like we were saying, we wind down the year. You can follow the live streams as well too, as they get posted on the podcast feeds like Spotify, Apple, all the different platforms. They will be available on there as well. And you can send us a message at RemingTonM Pod on Instagram if you guys want to message us over there as well. But hey, we're just rambling right through the start of Spurs Lakers. We're not even watching the game, Chad. Hey, we're being bad Spurs fans here. Do we spoil the start of the game for us? I guess we're gonna have to when we fire it up. But I guess get an initial reaction here and see what's going on. We haven't seen a score. I guess, at this point of the night, there is a chance that it could just be now tipping off, but we could be a couple minutes underway as well, too. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Halfway through the first quarter. We're cooking, chat. Hey, it is what it is. Spurs losing, but not too bad. 9-15. So how many games is this NBA Cup series going to go? Oh, wait a second. I think the winner goes to Vegas after one game. Castle for 3. Oh, Doncic on the closeout. Somehow Castle missed, chat. Hey, LeBron on the other end responds. Nope. Not able to get to go. Washed. Hey, is that how we end, chat? That's probably how we're going to have. That's definitely how we end. Once we say LeBron washed, I think the YouTube just stops letting us broadcast. It is what it is. So, you can, like I said, join us later this week as we are live following more NBA. Maybe it is NBA Cup this Friday, finals this Friday as well, too. Castle and 1 as we leave it there. So, hope you, ladies and gentlemen, have a good rest of your